That hurt.
Then what is this thing?
Gio should never play for U.S. men's national team again because of the action of his parents.
What an idiot! Oh!
What type of Muppet does this?
It's Muppets. Absolute Muppets.
I'm not going to be the best person to give a whole explanation here, but that's...
Booty! Sick! Booty!
Fucking deal with it. What are we really doing?
Yeah, I can agree with that. A zebra in between a tarantula and an elephant.
Has been nothing more than a sham.
Yeah, we didn't play well, but you know what? At the end of the day, we got the job done.
It's going to be a good time for sure.
Oh, sex with the first cousin would indeed be incest. And
welcome to the Straight Red Card. Later on this show, Meg Swanick from the Swan Dive will be joining us. Also writes for The Guardian.
She's finishing up a small little presser interview thingy, and she'll be jumping in.
Yeah, she's currently doing an interview pressy thingy. I did want to give credit to Brian DeMarco in the comments for the last show, where he commented on my 6'2" ex-girlfriend from back when I was in my 20s. She was a IU basketball player, actually. And
they figured it out, I bet you, didn't they? Did you go back through and find out who it was?
No, they didn't. No, I'm not.
You kind of gave a lot of hints there. I gave the year, you gave the height.
Well, I said I was in my 20s. I was in my mid-20s. She was in college.
You just said the early 90s right there.
No. Would that have been the early 90s? I think it was like 97, somewhere around
No,
there.
we definitely know.
96-ish. I don't remember the year. I do remember I was in my mid-20s and she was in college, so that should tell you everything about the age difference there. But he said, did she kiss you on the forehead? Did she kiss you on the forehead? Man, I fucking died laughing. Oh, zero.
Brian DeMarco always says 0 effing likes. Well, it's funny because every time I create a show, I'm the first person to like the show. Because I go in and then I share the show. So I always do that. So there should be at least one like there.
If you're not seeing any likes, that'd be weird. Because last time I checked, there were already like 4. So maybe I'm losing my mind. And that's before I came on here with Brett. Turd in the background says, and if you haven't liked it yet, just go ahead and like it because you're going to like it. It's going to be fine. The turd in the background says, welcome back to the Straight Red Card, the greatest soccer show on this side of the nut house. On this side of the nut house. Gregg Berhalter was the only candidate, but that's because my wife would miss his huge loads if he left. His huge loads. I don't even want to think about him having huge loads.
Got my Jam of the Month club membership right over there.
Oh yeah, I like your new library. That's very
pretty nice. I finally finished the room.
It's very Rico Suave, but no, it's not.
Was it Brian DeMarco also wanted to know if let's see here, what did he say? Somebody mentioned it. Maybe it wasn't Brett.
Kiss you on the forehead. Yeah, I mean, she was 3 inches taller than me. I was 5'11", she's 6'2". There you go. Okay. And I mentioned my parents used to call her Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the Amazon. They were so mean behind my back, man. I had no idea.
Well, it'd be even meaner if they said it to your face.
Man, they shouldn't have been that mean, period. But I don't think they really thought that relationship was going to last. There was like a 6-year gap between us, 7. But, she liked all the same music I liked and all that stuff. Dong finally let Brett leave the MLS office. Yeah.
Well, I mean, given the wonderful coverage we've given over the past couple shows, I mean, they're finally like, get out of here.
Yeah.
I never invited you here to begin with. Take your laptop and go.
Well, usually we're in there after hours, so it was the custodian who told on you. Speaking of music days, so that's how I met this girl. And I know I usually give out everybody's fucking names here on the show, which is not a smart idea. I know. Although I haven't heard from any of them, like, why did you say my name on your show? So I think we're fine. But I did meet her playing in a basement gig there in Bloomington, in front of 100 people stuffed in a basement, all breathing on top of each other, and it's sweaty and it's hot and blech. But anyhow, it was a lot of fun. But it reminded me of a time when I was in tour. We were in Nashville, and I stayed at a friend's house. And I got disoriented when I woke up in the middle of the night. And instead of opening the door to the bathroom, I opened the door to the closet. And I walked in the closet, and I peed in the closet.
Oh, you're always supposed to say somebody else does that. You're never supposed to take claim for that.
I know. I felt so bad. I had to tell him in the morning. I'm like, yeah, I pissed all over your closet.
I can't believe your dog pissed in the closet. I don't have a dog.
Your dog. I would have blamed
I can't believe your senile grandma pissed in the closet.
I don't think they had a grandma. They did have dogs. But I mean, they did have dogs, but I would never blame a dog for that. So, you know, that would be really a disgusting human act to do that. Jesse Negron says, Berhalter on Alexa's podcast made me want to chemically castrate myself. Yeah, it wasn't much fun. I know that they think that they ask hard-hitting questions, but honestly, it was a snooze fest. I mean, I thought, wow, 30-minute interview. I'm going to timestamp this. Moments in the show. Brett and I can cover it with Meg. Nah, there was really nothing there to cover. It was all pretty much boring. So
they stumbled across the clip where they're talking about Gio being a game changer off the bench or something like that.
Yeah, that was one part of it, but I don't think that's what Gregg was saying. So he'll be starting for us. 6'2", 1997. You hooper. Thanks, Fumar. Let's trim it down. I didn't say she was on the big girl team, by the way.
You guys are all on the case. Go crack it.
Remember, she could have played on the reserve team. You know, she could have been one of the backups that never got to play.
You're not hooking up with a chick that's 4 inches taller than you if she's on the reserve team. I mean, come on.
3 inches spread, not 4. Let's not make it any worse than it was. All right, Jose Reyes.
The same inches you are long, apparently.
$10. Thank you, Jose. Looking forward to Meg and y'all's discussion. I know it was mentioned last that I couldn't make live, but Sargent is just on fire. Love to see. Cheers. Yeah, no, we're all happy for Josh Sargent, really. And I know everybody thinks we're, you know, Sargent snugglers here, and that's fine. But
cool with it.
I'm fine with it. I mean, I think he's a really good player, and I've been following him since he was not following him literally, but following
Derek was just texting me earlier that he wishes he would shave, though.
Shave? Shave what?
You're like, we're Sargent nuzzlers. So I'm like...
Oh, okay. You want him to trim it up if we're going to snuggle it. All right. That's fair. Hey, did you hear the big news about the guy and the doctor that were arrested? So the wife was in a car wreck, right? And she was in a coma.
Suspicious already. Okay.
Yeah, no, she's been in a coma, had been in a coma for months, apparently. So the doctor and this other therapist, they sat down. They're like, well, what can we start doing? And of course, he started off by doing the normal things, reading her books and stuff like that at night, trying to kind of wake her up or maybe see something. And then they moved on to things like, well, let's try, giving her a massage. So they would leave the husband in the hospital room with her, and he would give her massages. And that wasn't really doing anything. So they're finally months along. They're getting kind of desperate because she really was supposed to not be in the coma by now. They predicted she should be coming out at this point.
The doctor probably said, this works for pregnancy, so maybe this would also work for comas?
No, no, that's not what happened. Okay. So they get desperate at some point, and finally the therapist and the doctor are like, why don't you go in there? And I know this sounds radical, but I want you to perform oral sex.
I wasn't too far off. Come on.
Yeah. So they leave him alone. He shuts the door. He goes in, and he comes, kind of comes out 5 minutes later. He's extremely disturbed. And the doctor comes up. He's like, what's wrong? And he's like, it's not working. He said, what do you mean it's not working? He said, well, she nearly choked to death.
I would say her mouth's dry or something like that.
Yeah, doctors, of course, like, no, dummy, you were supposed to perform oral sex on her, not the other way around. Anyhow, Christopher Ellie, $2. I'm early for the straight red card. Yes.
Woo!
Woo! All right. You just missed the ta-dunk moment. By the way, speaking of jokes, have you seen Jimmy Carr lately? The comedian? What's wrong with that guy? Is he sick? He looks like he's about to shrivel away into nothing. He must have cancer or something. I don't know.
Must be on cocaine.
Radical diet, too much coke. Candy? I don't know. He looks horrible. Speaking for myself, that's not like I look like a bowl of fucking cherries. All right, so that's all I got, by the way, this morning or this night. this morning. I just need to go back to bed. Fuck this day.
Well, let's start off fresh with the video clip you provided me.
Oh yeah, this one scared me. Is it real? Is my question, or is this some sort of 0
ways to maximize? What's happening? Can I maximize? This is it, huh? Okay. Well, enjoy, guys.
All right.
He says there's a little Ed already.
Yeah.
Wait a second. VFX artist fight. I don't know. That description right there, the little VFX artist fights AI rotoscoping, makes it sound like this is probably fake, Derek.
Yeah. Okay. So that's fake then.
Well, let's find out. What's up? Oh God. Yeah.
That's scary to me.
Sure, that'd be a concern of yours. And most people, I think, if you're parasailing or whatever, you're coming down. The scarier one was somebody was out there parasailing and everything, and they got detached from the boat during a storm, and they floated inland, not over water, but they.
So
that freaked me out more because there's telephone lines everywhere. Not telephone lines, but electrical lines everywhere.
Yeah, and you don't know if you're gonna, land on a pile of rocks or what have you. So, and then the other scary part is if you did land in the water too, because no one knows where you are. You've been blown away. They can't see you anymore. You could just be eaten by sharks, like this guy almost was.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole concept of parasailing just never struck me. First off, I don't really like being that far away from land in the ocean, so.
Hell yeah, brother!
I can swim and all that stuff, but you know what? If I can't see deeper than my knees in the water. No.
Yeah, exactly.
No. I know. No. Now, paddle boarding in the Bahamas, that was different because I could see all the way down to the freaking sand. It was like 10, 15 feet easy. Whatever.
Well, the sharks.
There's a little coral shark.
Sharks aren't as big in the Bahamas. Not that there isn't an occasional, great white that creeps over in the Bahamas, because there is an occasional bull, a hammer.
Sure.
But it's mostly white tips and black tips, the smaller guys. Not that they won't take a bite out of you, because they will, but they ain't gonna.
When we were in Jamaica this past summer, everyone wanted to go snorkeling. I've never actually gone snorkeling. I've used the snorkel set, of course, in a lake or a pool. Never like out in the middle of never out out in the bay, like hundreds of yards off of land and stuff. But I'm like, yeah, sure. We're going out there, and they're like, yeah, do you guys want to use the safe preservers, or do you want to use the manly preservers? The manly preservers are just like ones that you can inflate yourself, depending on if you want to go underwater and stuff like that. And everybody's like, I want that one. I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll go with that one. We're going out there, it's choppy water. I'm like, you know what? Give me the baby preserver. I want that instead. And my thought process, I'm like, if I'm going to get eaten by a shark, I'm going to get eaten by a shark. Whatever. It's going to happen.
Yes.
But I'm out there swimming with there's like 30 people out there. So I'm like, the shark, I have good odds that the shark's going to get somebody else instead of me.
A 1 in 30 chance, sure.
The only thing we came across as far as non-fish and whatever, like, not sea cucumbers, but whatever those little round, prickly things, urchins.
Sea urchins.
We're going back to the boat, and you're like going in and out with the waves and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, I found out that we're in this giant swarm of microscopic, but still jellyfishes.
Ouch.
Jellyfish. Yeah. I was like, swim away. No.
So, did you and EB pick up any of those sea cucumbers for later?
No. Well, no, there were no sea cucumbers. They're just urchins. I don't think.
Okay.
Cucumbers are prevalent around the Jamaica area.
You don't want to stick sea urchins.
Tropical enough, I guess.
Sea urchins in the butt. Bad idea. By the way, if you bought a Walmart ice cream sandwich and you tried to melt it, it will not melt. It will not melt. That's according to the Asian gal who does the cooking stuff on YouTube. She tried to actually put them in the oven and they would not melt.
Say that again?
Walmart ice cream sandwiches do not melt.
I imagine the ice cream melts, but maybe the actual bullshit. I call it bullshit.
Dude, you ever bought that cheap-ass cheese, too? That's not really cheese? It does not melt either.
I'm calling bullshit on the ice cream sandwiches. I've seen mini ice cream sandwich melt in a hot summer day. I can only imagine in the oven it's going to go down.
Were they Walmart ice cream sandwiches?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if those specifics. We'll do a test, Derek. We'll go and get some. I call bullshit.
I mean, you're calling her bullshit because I'm just reporting what she said.
Sure, I do. I call her bullshit. Want to get this
man,
proverbial monkey off my back here.
Okay.
So Jeff was nice enough to tag me on this because I asked him about it, and this isn't necessarily the back and forth you and I had, but it definitely we're just gonna open this up here.
Okay. You want me to read Alexi first?
Just read Lawless's.
Okay. Do big and bold things leading up to the 2026 World Cup. MLS should buy USL, a strategic acquisition for the expansion of the business footprint that brings much of American pro outdoor soccer under one tent. I have spoken. Da-dum-da-dum. Yep. That's what happens every time Lawless tweets. There's a da-dum-da-dum afterwards. So, and then I said, why the hell would Major League Soccer want to buy USL when they can do what they're doing now? Pick out specific markets in USL they want to steal, and then steal it and take in the $600 million entry fee that you have to pay to get into MLS, which could be higher as we go further down the road. They're making money hand over fist. Why spend money ruining USL or buying a league? For what reason is there to do that for them? They're in it for the money. They're not in for charity. So they're not going to just buy all of USL, some of which markets in USL are not very fruitful ones. And then they permanently relegate the USL anyhow? I don't get the point. Why buy it? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So I know Tack brought the topic back up, but honestly, it makes no sense for them to buy it.
So, and the reason why I bring this up.
Okay. Besides the fact that you confused.
Yeah. I'm going to own up to an error, Derek. Let me do it my own way, okay? So Tack brings this topic up. Somebody actually once tried to tell us that MLS should actually buy a USL. And I go, I'm pretty sure that was something that Lawless said, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And then Derek was like, no, that's what I said. Mm-hmm. And Lawless said the opposite. And I go, I'm pretty sure Lawless said it, but you agreed with him. And then I went back and looked. I'm like, and then you go, I dare you to go look for that quote.
Yep.
And I went and looked, guys. I went and looked.
Yeah, I mean,
that was wrong.
Kind of amazing.
Way wrong. Like
you
100% wrong.
You're getting Lawless and I mixed up these days. So
I'm kind of confused why I assumed that Lawless would have a logical and cohesive thought process there.
Yeah, I mean, I disagreed with Lawless. I said, well, that's a ridiculous idea. Why would they do that? So, yeah, I'm glad we got...
guys. Brett was wrong. February 21st, 2024. Remember this day. It is a rarity that Derek or I are ever wrong. But if we are wrong, we will own up to it.
Yes, we will.
Similarly, if we were to have quoted what happened in the GeoGate as blackmail, we would have came back and said, nah, it wasn't blackmail. I was wrong.
Well, there's still dumb fuckers out there that think it's blackmail. They haven't figured out what the legal term actually means. They're like, well, in Carmen street talk, in culture, that's blackmail. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Reyna's mom called Ernie, bitched about Gregg, never called Gregg and threatened Gregg, never called Gregg and said, if you don't start, whatever, I don't know what her threat could have been. The World Cup was over, right? It was over at that point. If you don't quit your job, I guess is what you could have said, then I will break the news about you beating up who now is your wife. I'll break it. Now that's closer to blackmail than what actually happened. She called Ernie, bitch to Ernie and said, you think what my son did was so bad? You should hear about the shit that fucking Gregg did. And then she told him. not thinking, as she said when she was quoted, she might be full of shit, that Ernie would have to turn her in to U.S. Soccer and report what she said.
Well, and I'm sorry, but the evidence provided, not the evidence, but the definition provided, the whole cultural aspect of it, would be the equivalent of me saying, hey, this is this. And they're like, no, it's not. I'm like, and I pull my source up as Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand that some people will say that, and that's exactly what happened, is people willy-nilly just said that because Berhalter kind of alluded to it, and then all of a sudden the media ran with it. It's
Jeff
a bit
Carlisle
different. That's why some people kind of walked it back. They didn't. They did some corrections here. Why, if it was actual blackmail, it would still be on the article itself instead of just as a correction. Because there's legal ramifications for saying that shit.
Exactly, and there are still reports out there that were never corrected. That if the Reynas wanted to, and they're not going to because they want to walk away from this as fast as possible.
Why pick that scab, right?
Yeah, exactly. But they could sue for, basically that's a misrepresentation of what happened. Extreme retaliation does not equal blackmail. Yeah, it's not. Blackmail is an actual legal term. And if you go look it up, what it means legally, not what it means on the street, not what it means to your cousin Biff, not what it means to your incestual relationship with your non-stepsister. None of that matters. What matters is the legal definition of blackmail, and that's not what it was. So it was a stupid thing to do, is what it was. You want to really put it down to, you want to define it. It was an absolutely repulsively stupid thing to say, and it was a dumb thing to do. I mean, we're talking 30 years out. And then, we didn't even really get the whole picture, even though we guessed what really happened that day with Gregg and his now wife. And yeah, the story's over. But certain people want to keep harping on it. Man, there's one particular person who just hates us, hates tact. Might hate Pete. I don't know. But anyhow, Pete is back. He's back on air, by the way. What's that?
Might. Good one.
Might. I'm sure he does. Yeah. Is he the one that called them soccer terrorists or
ISIS?
ISIS. Yeah.
U.S. men's national team's ISIS or Twitter ISIS is what it was, or just Twitter ISIS, I think is what it was. And I didn't know that Tech got upset with that initially. You could have rolled with him, man. Just simply said, "Man, I know I'm petite, but I don't look anything like an Egyptian goddess."
Did you just call Tack petite?
Petite.
I know he's a smaller mammal than we are, but by a long shot. I mean, we would not fit in a women's jersey. There is no doubt about that. Neither of us. But it is what it is. Where's Meg?
Where's Meg? This is Kate. Al, we are waiting, and we are stretching out the intro topics because I don't have a whole hell of a lot of puff pieces because that should be here on time, but should be here shortly. So Kumar asked if it was Jake, or he said Jake, and Jake says, "Was it me?" LOL. No, it wasn't you, Jake.
It wasn't Jake.
No.
It wasn't Jake.
Jake, you said they are the furthest thing away from Twitter ISIS. So,
right. That's what Jake said. So, no, Jake did not call.
Nope.
I mean,
did not call him that at all.
No. Now, whatever's going on at this point between Jake and Tact and whatever, I have no fucking idea what's going on. I don't know. I hope that everybody gets along and makes up. Let's just put it that way. And I hope, whatever career Jake's having with Raj and who's the other guy? Because we only see one guy from Men in Hats. Men in Hats.
Mr. Blazers.
Men in Blazers. What are Men in Hats? Is that a band? That's a band, right? No.
It's an 80s band you're thinking of.
I come from the land down under. Can't you hear the thunder?
The Llamas and Hats, that's what it is.
What is it?
No.
Llamas and Hats. What is the name of that fucking band? Vegemite sandwich.
Guys, chat, you're normally a lot fat. Men in hats. It is men in hats, yeah.
Okay, no,
Men in
it can't be Men in Hats. Men in
Oh,
Hats
isn't
did.
it?
Wait, no. Men in
Rocky-
Hats did.
Rocky Man.
Men in Hats was the guy who you can dance, everybody
Oh,
piss in your pants.
You can dance.
You
if
can
want.
dance. You can dance your
What's
pants
the song you were singing there, Derek?
Well, now I'm singing this one.
No, what's the other song you're singing?
I come from a land down under, where women grow and men plunder. Women
Who's the
grow.
first
I don't
to say
know
it?
the
Let's see,
lyrics.
going back up the list here. We have a Men at Work.
Men at work.
Men at Work.
There we
Men
go.
at
Thank you
work.
so
Men at
fucking
work.
much.
People, and a couple people will say Men Without Hats.
That is a different song, Men Without Hats. That's we can dance, everybody piss in your pants. That's not the lyrics, but I don't know what the lyrics are. We're gonna great.
The X says, "Poor Meg. She's not here to suffer this. Don't worry."
No. Safety dance.
We'd be on a completely different level if Meg was actually here. Professional guys, we're professionals.
For professionals. Safety dance is the name.
Yep.
Safety
Everyone got
dance. We can safety dance. Hey, we can safety dance. All right. We better
She
go
might
on.
have actually been in the back room and heard us singing the song, Derek, and she might have bounced. Like,
She
oh
might have
God, the time. I gotta catch a flight in the morning.
I mean,
red eye.
to be fair to Meg, if she does bounce on us, I mean, being on our show probably not going to help her career in journalism. Probably not.
Probably not.
Not with the USSF. And so she's very brave to come back on the show.
Oh, yeah, why to get rid of that?
Hey, don't call Meg a bitch. What are you
No,
doing?
I'm talking about myself.
Oh, okay.
Let's
Well,
see if I
let's-
can find it real quick here.
Let's start some soccer coverage.
Well, I wanted to talk about the MLS. Again, we're trying to find some fluff pieces until Meg gets here.
Well,
I
I can
wanted
do
to talk-
Yanks abroad.
Ooh, that's an idea. Let me
Yeah.
jump into one thing, assuming I can find it here really quickly as I scroll down Twitter, and this could be it right here.
So
Nice
Meg was supposed to
timing.
be here at 8:30, just so you know, those here.
Okay, so you watched the Real Salt Lake and Miami match, right?
I did watch it kind of. I mean, I watched it while I was doing other things. Does that count as watching it?
That's a take I've never heard before.
I mean, dude, if you only knew behind the scenes how much that is not true. Oh, boy.
Oh, we don't even have to dive into this topic, although we will dive into this topic real quick. Let me add her to the stream here real quick.
Speaking of diving, here is from the
Hello.
Swan Dive, Meg Swanick. Thank you for joining us, Meg. How are you?
Fellas, how are you?
Well, you know, we are
Living.
like we always, we're just a couple clowns here having a show, having a good time. How was your little interview thing there? That go well?
Good. Just a press conference with Twyla Kilgore, the interim manager of the USWNT.
Okay. How did that go? I mean, a lot of big pressures on her to bring the squad back to prominence.
Good. She I don't know if you guys have been tuning into her pressers or Twyla at all, but she's going to be an assistant staying on with the US women once Emma Hayes takes hold this coming May. And Twyla's been with the team. She provides that continuity. She's a very even-toned, knowledgeable, pleasant manager. She's a great interim coach. The players really like her. She's been setting them up well. She works with Emma Hayes already. So she has gone to visit Emma in London, where she is with Chelsea, bringing back ideas that they want to implement. And Twyla's kind of just in charge of the day-to-day is how she keeps referring to it.
Kind of like
So yeah, he's good. The press conference was good. And go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We have a little delay. Where are you? In Germany? We got this long, like 3-second delay.
I'm in Philly. I always have bad connection. Can you hear me okay though?
No, we can hear you. Yeah. You're a little blurry, but that's, whatever. I'm blurry.
Well, Derek, you're
sometimes,
one for talking. I mean, come on.
I'm blurry half the time on this show, but that's a whole nother thing. No, Emma's got a lot of pressure on her though, right? Because, after what just happened, so she's right now, I guess Twyla's playing sort of like the BJ role kind of holding down the fort until Emma establishes herself there.
Yeah, and so Emma Hayes, I mean, she is widely regarded, and in my opinion, correctly, the best manager in the women's side of the game at the club level. She hasn't coached a national team, but she's well decorated with Chelsea, kind of setting up and then really succeeding with the Chelsea women's side. And she's going to be with Chelsea until May, so she's technically not with the team yet. And then she's going to have like a 1 month turnaround between taking over the team officially and then the Olympics. So on the one hand,
Wow.
yeah, there's pressure, but I think that she kind of has a little bit of leeway if things don't go well. There is that ready-made excuse of she just had a month with the team. But certainly I think that there is an excitement around her taking hold of the team and the potential that they might really have a redemption run at the Olympics.
So listen, it's not fair comparison, but we did go out and hire arguably the best women's soccer coach in the world.
Yeah.
And then you, of course, have the criticism that that's not what we did with the men's team. But then that's kind of a different picture, because it's not like you can just go out and hire whoever you want, because it's not like the United States men's team is like U.S. women's team. The women's team is potentially one of the best teams in the world. The men's team, not so much. So, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on that.
I guess before we dive too far back into the men's and with Berhalter and so forth, we do have a topic with the women's national team, so I'd like to stick with the women's national team.
Okay.
Before we go too far. But did you have anything on that, Meg?
For sure. I mean, I don't want to redirect the whole conversation. There's so many avenues we could go down, but I mean, what Derek brings up is an interesting point, and I actually think it's really related to the whole topic of Gregg coming back. Is that, you know, Vlaco, the previous manager, was making 30% of Gregg Berhalter's salary. Gregg Berhalter is a well-paid man, and Vlaco Andonovski, the previous manager, was making peanuts compared to him. And in a landscape where we want these programs to be equal, now they are. Emma Hayes is being brought in on a salary that is the highest salary in the world, commensurate with her quality, deserved for her. But one of the things that people have supposed in Gregg's return is that if we had brought in a Pep Guardiola, would we have had the equal salaries that Gregg and Emma have? You know what I mean? Like, in a world where we want the men's program and the women's program to be equal, they are now with Gregg and with Emma Hayes. But if we had gone above the Gregg Berhalter, so that's a consideration.
Well, that's definitely
what I would say.
One of the reasons we thought Gregg got brought back, and we'll jump into this topic, I guess, since we're here, is primarily because one of the big reasons is for that reason is the equal pay rule that they've enacted as far as between the men's and the women's game, is that if you bring in somebody who's going to require so much more money than what Gregg was getting paid previously, like you said, Pep or something like that, then by contrast, they'd have to pay the women's coach an equal amount, because that's what they move forward with. And that's great. But that's one of the probably the reasons why we probably ended up going with Gregg, or somebody like Gregg in that sense.
But Gregg was still the 9th or 7th highest, 6th highest paid coach in the World Cup.
2.4 mil, I think, the World Cup year, I think is what the article said. Or something like that.
I wouldn't say it's the reason.
I agree with Bill.
Yeah. My guess is that it's not the reason, but it's a factor that made it seem reasonable to bring him back. Whether or not he was automatically coming back or people wanted him to come back, the idea that they wanted some semblance of equality between the pay structure between the men and the women, I think it made it an appealing argument in the direction of Gregg.
Well, another thing, I'd say another thing they considered, they mentioned, especially when he got hired, is that similar to the playing style of the teams he was a sporting director of with Matt Crocker, is that Gregg plays a very similar system, and he's already had the one cycle prior, so it kind of made sense to kind of bring him back in.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, when it comes to bringing Gregg back, it's not something I would have personally argued for myself in the
One
months
cycle per-
between
yeah.
the 2022 World Cup and when he did come back. I suspected that he would come back. Did I think it was the right choice? I did not. But I can see the reasons why. One of them is what we just mentioned in terms of the pay structure. Another is, and he just did an interview with Alexi Lawless on his podcast, and he talked about unfinished business. I think Gregg was hired initially with an eye toward 2026, that you're going to build something long term. You're going to instill a system that players need every window between now and 2026 to perfect. And I think that's kind of the leeway that he has been given from square one, is that you're the manager until this World Cup. We're going to develop something new together in this long-term vision. So I think that's part of it. I do think that the players wanted him back, and we shouldn't ignore that piece either.
Well, so one of my problems is the charade then. Why go ahead and pretend that, as was quoted, we, did multiple interviews with top candidates? Well, maybe that's not an exact quote, but you get the point. Why just even go through that? Like, that seems like a charade. It was unnecessary. And even the mainstream press that don't even cover U.S. soccer were calling it. I mean, they were calling it, well, what did Gregg Berhalter say? He called them Muppets for even pretending that. And of course, Gregg Berhalter doesn't have to worry about his job, so he can say that. I'm surprised Hurt said it too, but then again, he's at ESPN as well. He doesn't have to worry about his position in his job. But I don't think a lot of the other U.S. soccer media covered it in the same way, as harshly as, and that, again, gets back to the charade. Why the charade? Yeah.
Well, I guess the first thing that I would say is that I am not privy to information that would say that it was a charade. I don't, I have no reason to believe concretely that it was a charade, and I can only make opinions based off of the information that is put to the public, that you're all aware of as well, that there was an allegedly robust criteria that Gregg Berhalter developed himself that pointed to him in the end. Listen, I think that there's valid reasons that he came back, and it's what we said. I think that one thing is, who wanted the job? Like, there are managers. Jesse Marsh probably wanted the job.
Yeah. That's one.
Pep Guardiola has said, at some point, it's a job that interests me. Like, it's an interesting job, I think, to some people for a number of reasons, but the money is a huge factor. Like, who can this program afford, especially given what we want to do with equality between the men and the women? So that is a valid reason he was brought back. And another valid reason he was brought back is that players advocated for him. Anthony Robinson, Christian Pulisic, Matt Turner, they advocated for his return. And we can sit here disagreeing all we want, but so we're not them, and they have weight in this process. So there are valid reasons why he was brought back. In terms of it being a sham, I mean, again, I don't have information that would say that was the case.
Yeah, I guess, what was the point of even pretending like he wasn't the original guy from the beginning that they wanted anyhow? They should have just said that. We got the guy back that we wanted. We did the investigation. We want to keep this flowing. We want to keep continuation. Why bring up the other amazing multiple candidates that they interviewed? I don't even know what the point of it was, frankly. And then there were all these rumors that Jesse Marsh was going to get the job for like 2 days, and then that crumbled and fell to pieces. Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. We got Gregg, and I think we kind of all knew we were going to get Gregg back anyhow. Maybe at one point there was some doubt but I think we all kind of realized that's where things were headed.
Yeah. And where I've landed on this personally is that, I think the reasons we've laid out, the players themselves advocating for him, the money situation, the inevitability of it all, or the perception of that, whether that's accurate or not, that's who they brought back. And where I'm at is he has until the Copa America to prove that there is development. Again, he just went on the Alexi Lalas podcast. It's an interesting conversation. He seems to be, or he says that he's accepting of the pressure. He understands why he has the pressure. And he says, we have to deliver. And proof that I should stay on is that, there we go. And proof, I'm paraphrasing here, but it seemed from my interpretation that he was arguing that there has always been proof of development. They lose to Germany, they learn. They do this, they learn. We get rid of him, we're not moving forward. We're starting from square one. I think that's the argument. And for me, it's you're making at least the semifinal in Copa America, or we need to look at someone else. That's where I'm at.
I have to say that I know we're about to play this clip, Brett, but the whole, we're going to learn from our mistakes, or we're going to keep progressing. That narrative, that jargon, it's jargon, really. It's getting a little old for me personally, because I noticed a jump in learning and getting better and playing more creatively and more freely when BJ was there, and before him, Hudson. I saw a different team. I saw something that was an evolution. And since Gregg has been back, and I don't want to get anybody in any trouble, but I'm just saying, to me, the evolution stagnated as soon as he returned. And that could be for a lot of reasons, but at least Gregg has moved to a 4-2-3-1. That's an evolution in a sense. But it's been very frustrating.
Well, I think, quite frankly, the 4-2-3-1 was the necessary change, simply because we didn't have a Tyler Adams-esque type of destroyer for that six. So you kind of have to fall back on that. And again, it gives you the excuse to say, hey, look, see, we tried this. And then when Adams comes in, or Maloney, or whomever, you could always revert back if you wanted to, I guess. But
I don't think it's going to be Maloney. I don't think it's going to be Maloney. Yeah,
I'm saying Maloney's more the closest thing to a Tyler type of six that we have.
Absolutely true. Yes.
So that's the only reason I'm saying that.
No, I get it.
I don't see a reason why we'd ever venture out of the 4-2-3-1, even when Tyler comes back.
Well, yeah, it's going to make decisions for Gregg when Tyler is back and fit and completely 100% healthy and playing. If we're still playing a double pivot, somebody's got to go if you're going to play Reyna. And that's, between Musa, McKennie, and Adams, somebody got to go sit the bench, depending on who you're playing, I guess. That's 2027. Thank you, my brother, for 199. Fuck it, we ball. BJ Ball was the best. Fuck it, we ball. Okay, and now I get what you're saying.
Well, yeah, because you had the with Berhalter, you have the over micromanaged system as a whole. And you had Hudson, who was kind of more like, hey, we got the system, but we're going to be kind of free flowing. And then BJ was like, yeah, go out there, have fun, guys.
Yeah,
that's what it seemed like, at least.
You're laughing, Meg. What's up? Meg, did you hear me?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, actually. And I think that's a huge part. And like in this interview, I don't know if it's the specific clip you're about to play. Am I here?
Can you hear? I can hear you. Yeah. Uh-oh.
Hello?
You are kind of roboting in and out of there a little bit.
I'm here. Okay. Yeah, I guess I was just saying that I think for me that is one of the big differences where okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna see if I can hotspot my way to clarity.
Man, they do have shitty fucking connections in Philadelphia, don't they? Jesus Christ. Yeah, it sucks.
Okay. While she's doing that, let's hold off on this topic. We'll come back to this in just a second, I guess. You back?
Am I here? Hello?
Yeah, there you are.
Hello?
Yes.
God,
she's
sorry.
alive.
Yeah,
Sorry
Philly
about that.
connections do suck. You're right.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, you were talking about whether or
yeah,
not this
quickly.
was the clip that we're referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would just say my quick addendum to what you just said, Brett, is that I think that sometimes the flaw of Gregg is that as much merit as there might be in his long-term 8-year vision of really turning this into the tactical squad he wants them to be, he talks about in this interview like what have you learned in the past year, and it's very minute details in the Germany game of how they're pressing, and I don't know. I think sometimes he and I'm not alone in feeling this way. He's overthinking it. He's over, I think they went into halftime and he thought he could mastermind their way into a win, and it completely backfired. It did the exact opposite. And maybe if they had just played differently in that second half, we'd have a different result. So I sometimes think that he's over tinkering the team to the detriment of the results. A lot, actually.
I think he's taken the devil is in the detail way too far. It's not actually. As a coach, sometimes it's the opposite. And I'm not saying he needs to go the Klinsmann route where you just set up a formation and let a bunch of 11 guys run around out there. Yeah, I mean, you got to have some sort of basic plan. But we were just listening to a conversation between Roy Keane and who the hell was it else? Anyhow, they were talking about Ferguson. They're like, yeah, we never really talked about tactics. He just put out a formation. We had a basic playing system. Like if one back went forward, the other back had to stay. If one midfielder went forward, the other mid had to cover. It was basic stuff, but he just let out, not that we're Manchester United circa 1995, 98. We're not, but still, that's the kind of freedom that Ferguson allowed his teams to play with. He didn't get drowned in the detail like Gregg does. And I think that's what you're saying there.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and ultimately in that same interview, just to jump back onto that real quick, they talked about how, well, maybe it was because we've had a better understanding because we played so long together type of thing, going up the youth system all the way through Manchester, etc. But to be fair, same thing is occurring with this current squad of the United States men's national team.
Yep.
I mean, within a couple of youth cycles, I mean, you have basically our entire starting 11 playing together.
And they all know each other. They've known each other, a lot of them, since they were kids.
Right. I mean, so it's interesting, like they're kind of perfect foils, like Gregg Berhalter and Jesse Marsch, the other person who might have been floated out as the other option, whether or not he would have been a perfect option. Because you have Gregg over here who is kind of really paying attention to the most minute details, and he really sees himself as a tactics guy and a details guy. And then Jesse Marsch, who also just did an interesting interview with CBS Sports, he talked about, I think he mentioned in that interview, I don't know if you guys watched that one, he talked about, he said that he'd spoken with Tyler Adams, and Tyler Adams had said, it's a lot of tactics focus and less motivation, because Jesse had talked about the success of previous USMNT programs. They would watch like the Redeem Team together and stuff like that, which is a little bit funny. And
oh no.
It's going so good.
It was working there for a second. Oh, we got Frozen Meg on our show.
Frozen Meg.
Oh man. Her internet connection does suck.
But I guess that point is, obviously Jesse's going to be a more personable, player's coach, getting them motivated about everything.
She's back.
One thing Marsch will never do is claim that the U.S. men's national team, are African dogs.
No, Jesse won't do that to the team. And I mean, if Jesse did do it, it would come off real. Like if you look at that halftime speech, by the way, he gave at Salzburg, half in German, half in English.
Yeah.
And ripping those guys a new one at halftime. That was real. And I just don't, that's not in Gregg. I mean, it used to be in Gregg. Apparently he used to slam his head against lockers when he was a player. He was fiery. He was aggressive. maybe too aggressive. And now that's not what we see. We see a pseudo philosopher now. I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm glad you're back though.
Hopefully I'm back. Am I back? Am I?
You sound the best yet. So this is the clearest you've been all time.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about the internet quality. Yeah, but you've encapsulated my point, is that there's an interesting foil. Not that Jesse's not a tactics guy, not that. Yeah, I feel like Jesse feels, and potentially when you hear him talk about it as a national team manager, motivating these guys, getting to the heart of these guys, and setting them out.
Damn it. This is unfair.
Is there a Starbucks nearby?
I think U.S. Soccer does not want her to say this.
This must be it. It has to be it.
Jesus Christ. All right, we're going to try again. All right,
Sorry.
we were at foil.
That's all you got?
We know that's maybe a little foil would help your internet connection.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna let me finagle. Play your clip and let me finagle and see how I can fix this.
They're sounding great all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So,
all right,
here we go.
Okay, so this is the clip. Only clip we're going to play, unless Derek, you have another timestamp, is just the word salad that Gregg provides for the very first question, because it doesn't actually answer Lawless's question. I haven't seen passes because I've only seen a clip. Does Lawless actually press him and say, "Hey, that doesn't really answer my question"?
I mean, all of the answers to the questions are not word salad, but just easy. He's very comfortable, laid back in this conversation. But yeah, it's you don't learn anything that new outside of the German game thing that Meg brought up, where Gregg is obviously really into the weeds instead of looking at the bigger picture of what's going on there as far as our patterns of play. I think are what the problem is, and that's not what Gregg understands. Gregg doesn't understand that our patterns of play are so predictable. I can call out who's going to get the ball next before the ball ever arrives, 15 seconds before it gets there. And that's because he's overly tactically. And the players say this too. It's not just me. They're like, yeah, you go out there and play for Gregg. It's the ball's supposed to go here and then it's supposed to go there and I'm supposed to be there. The ball's then supposed to go there and there and there and there's the triangle thing there and it's just predictable. So anyhow,
all right. Well, let's hear what Lawless's question is, and we'll hear the word salad that comes out of Gregg's mouth.
Does your job as U.S. men's national team coach depend on the success of Copa America this summer?
Jesus, I guess
I'm going to pause it just because Lawless has pinged us before on playing a clip too long. So
I think Meg's frozen anyhow.
Yeah. So I guess the big question for Gregg, how he should have actually answered this is like, what's your definition of success?
Yes.
Making it out of the group. I mean, I know Meg mentioned semifinals or get shit canned
or bust.
Yeah.
but Lawless does not press him on what is success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted from this interview. I don't know if I'm here and connecting, but
you are.
I thanks for your patience. I was left wanting. I wanted specifics. What does success look like? I think a lot of people are on the same page here when it comes to Copa America, with this being the test. This is the major tournament. It's on home soil. We need to prove ourselves. It will do a lot, ostensibly, about building momentum. We could also go off on tangents about, U.S. soccer and Gregg Berhalter's goals of changing soccer in America forever. Meanwhile, tickets for this tournament are like $200 minimum. So that's a whole other piece to this, is like, well, there's one results, there's two legacy, three, like the price of tickets. Can you be very specific about how you're changing soccer in America forever? I don't believe you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe you. How? So that's one thing, but I was left wanting from this interview for that specific. And it's something I've been thinking about myself. what does success look like in this Copa America? I'm not delusional. I don't think that we have a team that is as talented individually or collectively as Argentina or Brazil, or I think that a lot of these teams are challenges, but for me, I think I've decided at least the semifinal or Gregg should be gone. What do you guys think?
So here's the thing. That mission statement that you just mentioned, Meg, and I used to be a school consultant for, like 15 years. And we would go over their mission statement. And one of a very common mission statement for schools was, well, we want to create great citizens for the future. And I said, well, how are you going to know? How are you going to know you created great citizens? Are you going to call them when they're 30 and go, hey, are you a great citizen? I just had to ask. We got to know, because 30 years ago you went to our school. We got to figure out if we're meeting our mission. Like in our mission here to make soccer. What was the mission here? Make soccer
change the way that
change soccer in America forever.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
it.
What the hell does that mean? Yeah, exactly. What does that mean? I mean, how are we going to gauge that? I don't like mission statements like that. I think mission statement should be something you can measure in the short term. And so again, as you say here, he wasn't pressed on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And feel free to tiptoe around this as much as you want, but I feel like you said that you came out of this interview wanting more. But I feel like with most of the media, at least, there's little opportunity for people to do follow-up questions and really press something. And quite frankly, Gregg is the king of word salad garbage coming out of his mouth. He doesn't necessarily answer half the questions. He just says a bunch of hot topics or hot answers, whatever.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I miss most about the Anthony Hudson BJ Callahan era is they were really thoughtful, actually, and provided really genuine answers. And to some extent, there's a freedom to being interim managers and actually being able to answer questions. But I certainly, at least for me, I don't feel that Gregg gives the most in-depth insight. Every now and then, I mean, he gives some interesting answers. I don't want to be entirely unfair to him, and he's certainly not without his qualities. But yeah, I think that a lot of this stuff is surface level. And for me, the slogans of this, I feel a little, from a certain perspective, it all just feels very corporate and slogan-y, the whole change soccer in America forever. Because again, my overarching question is how? And if that, the first Gregg Berhalter era slogan was change the way the world sees American soccer. And we seem to have closed that chapter and moved on as a program without actually achieving it. Did we actually do that before we moved on to the next chapter? So we had this big goal of change the way people see American soccer. And, I genuinely think, speaking to people in Doha in the media center, people were impressed with how they played, to Gregg's benefit. The way they came out and dominated the game and didn't just react, but dictated the game, impressed people. But were we ready to move on to the next goal? Has it really been achieved that we changed the way people see American soccer? I don't think so completely. But it's just a slogan. So the next era came, and now we're on to the next slogan. And the next slogan is change soccer in America forever, which is it's so overarching of a goal. It feels hilarious. And
yeah,
if that's been the goal since the 22 World Cup, I need specifics, because stadiums are not sold out, hardly. People are not filling the stadiums. Nothing's really changing. People who are dedicated to talking about the sport are being alienated outside of a select few. So I just would like specifics on what they mean and how they're actually achieving it.
It's interesting that you brought this up, because a friend of the show, journalist, who wrote a number of articles about the fact that the people buying tickets, or the population, the attendances for U.S. soccer games are way down. They're down. and he was blacklisted essentially. And so I don't want to get into that because, you know, it's happened to me. Can happen to anybody. I mean, not apparently. It does happen.
Can't happen to me.
And I don't want to get in that topic because that's rough. But the point being that there's a guard, right? So when Gregg talks, there's sort of he's a guarded person. When U.S. Soccer talks, it's in corporate speak. That's guarded speak. There's not an openness. There's not a realness to this. And it goes on with MLS as well, with MLS Pro Next or whatever the hell they're calling that. Next Pro. Like, okay, dude, I get it. It's jargon, but we know what it really means. It means it's going to be boys against boys now, instead of boys playing in USL against USL grown men teams. Like, don't sugarcoat it. We're not stupid. Like, we're going to figure it out. But it's just such a massive problem.
Derek, save all your anger for that. We'll get into that later. Don't worry about that.
My anger.
Do you think one of the reasons why attendance is down is due to this right here? The amount of money that it costs to get a single ticket? I think that's a big factor.
Problem. And I want to be fair. Well, I want to be fair to like people, because there are people, and it needs to be said, there are people who are members of the media, who are employees at the Federation, who are employees at MLS, who are doing the hard work of growing the game, genuinely, in every sphere. But I think a major problem across the board, and a lot of the things maybe that we'll talk about tonight, is just like the money. Yeah. And so, you know, they say they want to change soccer in America forever, but no one is selling out any stadiums because of money there. And the Copa America, we're not reaching out to new fans. We're not trying to my knowledge at least, we're not trying to bring people in to see Argentina or to see Brazil or to see the US who may be new to soccer and bring them into this love that we all have. No, we're trying to sell tickets for $300 to see Lionel Messi and make as much money as possible. So yeah, a lot of it is just money, and they have this big slogan, and I just want to know how, like, what exactly are you doing to do that?
Yeah. Go ahead, Brett.
I was going to jump back to the video.
Okay.
Because just to recap what we heard on the first 8 seconds, Lawless asked if his ass is on the hot seat for the results coming up here in the Copa. So
okay.
Lexi, I just flew from Chicago, 4-hour flight, and that's the first question I get.
Oh, you son of a! I guess I didn't pay attention to that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Yeah, you're gonna have to fast forward it.
I realized that it was like that's weird that it's the.
Well, and then as you're trying to find this, you found out at the end of this interview that Lawless and Gregg go out for dinner every time he's there, and you're like, okay, how objective can you really be if this is your buddy? Right, Meg? I mean,
I mean,
buddy.
No, I think it's difficult to and when you're a journalist, when you're a member of the media, it's difficult to really be harsh toward people that you're friends with.
Yep.
And negotiating, holding power to account, being able to. The entire media ecosystem around soccer in the US, like it's there's a lot of really incredible journalists who are doing it, but I would say that if you're friends with the people you're meant to be holding to account, are you really holding them to account? Are you willing to, or is it just a charade? And that's something I wonder about this conversation.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. You got to ride that fine line. Guys from the old school days, like Stephen Goff, who's been on our show, and Brian Schroeder, have managed to figure out how to manage to do that. Now, from my own personal point of view, it was very difficult for me to do that 20 years ago. And so this is not a new thing. This has been going on for a very, very long time. And so, I mean, we just mentioned the guy earlier who wrote the articles about attendance being down, being blacklisted, and never being invited or allowed to ask a question at U.S. soccer press conferences. I just don't think that that's something that they should do. I think that's not how a real organization operates. They don't blacklist people. They shouldn't.
They got rid of so that someone wrote about the attendance and they are no longer able to be credentialed.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name, Brett. Shit. He's a journalist. He works in Chicago. No, St. Louis. Was it St. Louis, Brett? I can't remember.
I can't think of who.
I can't remember. Anyhow, he wrote me personally, and I should remember, but I'm old and my memory sucks.
I think what we're missing in this industry is a Trent Grimm. The problem is that we don't have a Ted Lasso, and if we did have a Trent Grimm, USSF would have shit canned him after the first presser, so it wouldn't have mattered.
I just want to say there are people who have been writing about this team far longer than I've been around who do an incredible job of it. So there are people in every sector, like I said, even who are above our critique. But yeah, I mean, I do think all of these issues we're pointing to exist. I think they're real from my perspective.
What if I told you, Meg, that Brett Oppenheim is working in a way in congruence with U.S. Soccer, and that he actually
this Brett,
not this Brett, no,
Brett Oppenheim, the real estate. I wouldn't call him a tycoon or anything, but anyhow, he's working hand in hand with the U.S. Soccer. Now, this is all true. So this is
big fan of the show, by the way.
Yeah, he is a fan of the show, and he invited us and Pete and tactical manager and a bunch of other independent media types to a game in Austin, Texas. This is the last game U.S. Soccer played in Austin, Texas.
The Trinidad game in November.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they are trying something new, and they're letting Brett do the outreach for it to kind of, I don't know, bring in people who are the most critical of U.S. soccer. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Now, Brett and I didn't go. That was on me because I thought they were inviting us to the game in Trinidad and Tobago. Neither Brett or I could make that, but they were actually inviting us to Austin. But they did. And then, of course, they did talk with Pete and Tack while they were there. So that's interesting, and you can only imagine how that conversation went. So there is some outreach, and I think it's an interesting way of doing it, but I wish they would feel that way. They would be that open to people who are in the press conferences and asking the questions that they didn't have to tiptoe around as much. Because we're not going to tiptoe around, but of course, no matter how many games they invite us to, we're going to still be the same. But I don't know. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, yeah. I mean, I think, and I also think you can ask whatever you want in a press conference. The retribution is a little bit more intangible than like you can't ask that question, I guess is what I would say. And
cut. No.
And as you've not that there's retribution, you can ask whatever you want in the press conference. You just other things might happen down the line.
Consequences.
But, sure. Yeah. And to your point, yeah, I as I've said, I think that the Federation deserves credit for things like, inviting in a wider swath of types of media, working with YouTubers. They've worked with me. Like, I think that it's unfair to categorize the Federation or the U.S. soccer media of being completely unwelcoming to newcomers or outsiders, because that's not quite accurate. Yeah, I guess that's
we won't press you on this.
As often as Derek and I bash on USSF and men's national team, Gregg Berhalter and all that, we do give credit where credit's due. My concern would be is if they are inviting us to
give us a lecture
and stuff like that, and that they're my initial take on this, especially once I heard that they talk when Pete and Tack talked to a number of U.S. execs and stuff, is that they're wanting to get us in line, not necessarily telling us what we have to say, but corralling some of our negative the stuff we say about the organization when warranted, quite frankly, in our opinion.
Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah, well, we can tell you more after the show. We can't say any more than that.
Okay.
Yeah. But just like you, I mean, not that our sources are the people we're protecting here. So, but it isn't that U.S. Soccer. They do keep tabs. I mean, our show, we have.
They're watching right now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Are. I'm sorry, Meg.
I mean, here's the thing. When Michael Cameraman reached out to Pete, he said, "Hey, I know about the turd thing," and Pete's like, "I never."
Question, Meg. Do you know about the turd thing?
No, I don't know.
So Michael Cameraman knew that his nickname was called the turd in the background. And,
I like Michael Cameraman.
Oh, I hear
we have nothing against Michael.
We don't have anything against him. One time on the show, I could not remember the guy's name, and he was in the background of the interview, and I said, "That turd in the background guy, I can't remember." And bam, went.
Turd, if you're in the chat, go and post something so I can pull you up. Michael's in the chat right now. I guarantee.
So they pay attention.
No, I think Michael Cameraman's a great guy. I like Michael Cameraman for whatever it's worth. But
our initial, like, not necessarily, I wouldn't even say beef by any means, is that the pressers always used to start with like a 1 or 2 minute fluff session from Michael saying, like, Gregg is the winningest.
Let me do it, Brett.
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah.
Gregg is the best manager to ever coach the team for 3 years without a loss in the Caribbean. He has won every match 2-0 or better. And now your questions, please. Yeah, so I used to make fun of him, and but that's fine. It was all in humor. It was all in humor.
Just in good humor. We're all just friends.
And you know what? The great thing about Michael Cameraman when he was having the talk with Pete is he laughed about it. He thought it was funny. So that's good. The point being,
he's a good guy. He's good at his job, and he's a good guy. Yeah.
They watch. I mean, on occasion, they don't watch every show. So
yeah.
All
right. Well, I got the clip where we needed it. There's no more interruptions or anything.
All right.
Let's listen to the word salad.
Okay. Word salad.
No, it's been like 30 minutes since we started this 5-second clip.
We're not going to get very far tonight.
Flew from Chicago, 4-hour flight, and that's the first question I get.
This is how we roll.
I do appreciate Greg's
I'm not even ready for that.
Come on.
Yeah,
I think that for us to achieve our goals and what we want to do, the Copa America is very important. We have to do two things. We have to learn how to beat the best in the world, and we have to learn how to thrive in knockout competition. And Copa America is going to be big for that. Regarding myself, and the job, one thing I've learned with the national team job is that it's one of one. You're always under pressure. You're always accountable for results. And I think that, this is part of it. I'm learning to.
Do you think he's held accountable for the loss in Trinidad?
No. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think what I would hope and what I would imagine is that his leeway is the Copa America. So when he took charge, his first game in charge, I think, was the Germany game, and then the Ghana game, and then the Trinidad pair of games, and now he has this ramp toward Copa America. And I think this is his window for the federation, for the media, for the fans to prove that he deserves this. And maybe he'll prove us wrong, like maybe his argument that this team is developing an identity, a style, the little things that they're learning about how to press when Germany beats them this way or whatever it is. Maybe that'll translate to how we come out when we play Colombia and Brazil, and we'll be convinced. And I'm willing to be convinced. But yeah, I guess what I would say is in terms of losing in Trinidad, I don't know that there was any major retribution. I don't know that there needed to be just yet. I think that he was rehired with, you have until the Copa America.
Yeah, Des got blamed for that for the most part. And Des did a dumb thing. Al Weinstein says for $4.99, use this money to buy Mega Router. I don't know.
This is back when you were fixing yourself.
Am
earlier.
I still?
No.
No,
you're so sorry. Am I still out?
No, you're good. You're good now.
When you went and fixed all your whatever you last fixed, this came up, and then I forgot to pull up. This was like almost 30 minutes ago. This came up. Sorry, Al, that took so long.
We have to read the we have to.
I'm connected to my phone instead of the Wi-Fi. So
yeah, we have to read the super chats. The thing that, and you brought this up earlier, Meg, is like, what's the major word he used in there? Thrive. All right, thrive. Thrive is another one of those massively generic terms that if I went to that middle school again and said, or that high school, they would say, yeah, we want our students to thrive as citizens. Okay, well, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, what is thrive? And we never really get any definitive answer to what thrive means. I mean, you can look the word up, but
on top of that,
Right. And then-
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, even if you, I worked at companies before like transitioning into trying to cobble together a profession writing, which I do now. I worked in the like study abroad industry, and I've worked for companies. I worked at a college as a study abroad advisor, and then I worked for a pair of companies where we managed study abroad programs, and like we had our like monthly KPIs kind of thing. So like, how are you progressing? What boxes are you ticking? That means you're developing what we need to be successful in a year. So in this interview, in terms of like needing the specifics, Gregg pushes back on the idea that the team's not progressing. And what I would want to know is like, okay, well, what are those KPI? Like specifically, what is happening every month at the club level as these players are individuals or as a team every time you get together? Like, what is happening to make you feel that we're progressing? Because I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Personally.
I mean,
So what exactly are those monthly tick boxes?
There's a risk if you put those
Jared,
things
push back
out
on me,
there,
because
though.
actually you could argue. Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, if you sorry, Meg, I know we got this delay, but I mean, the thing is, if you do put those things out there, let's say you put them out there as bullet points, right? Then people can go, nope, you didn't meet that one. Nope, he didn't meet that one. Nope, he didn't meet that one. He should be gone. So there's a risk in being that unguarded, and being that,
On top of that, one of the things he talks about is like you have to be able to thrive in the knockout stage. But how many opportunities do you have to really work on such an activity? I mean, if he doesn't happen to get into the knockout stage, let's say if he flames out in the group stage, does that mean he can get shit canned?
Well, it's interesting. I actually thought so. To your point, Brett, he mentioned we need to be able to do well in knockout stage programs or tournaments, and we need to be able to beat big teams. So one of the deserved critiques of his tenure is we haven't beat a big team. If I'm missing something, point me toward it. But going back to like, I feel like the big overarching USMNT debate is like, is this actually the golden generation? Are these players actually more talented? Because we did more with less, if that's the case. We did more in the Confederations Cup. We did more in 2002. Like, we have done more with less if this is actually the more talented generation. So we need to explain why that's happening. So why aren't we breeding the big teams is one thing, and he points that out, so he knows that. And the other thing is, it's really interesting, and it's what Twyla Kilgore is talking about right now with the women in terms of this Gold Cup, is the tournament success and like the things like goal differential or not losing to Wales when it was your team to lose, or your game to lose rather. Or so you go back to like the 2022 World Cup, and it's like, we should have beat Wales. That game was ours to lose. And then England, I think we lacked a ruthlessness. Like he has said, and he said after that game that they were kind of trying to hold on a little bit. Like they weren't really going for it. The subs were to hold on to that 0-0 instead of, and some of this is on the players failing to capitalize. So I think it's interesting, the whole tournament aspect of it, because, well, why didn't they actually beat Wales? And why didn't they beat England? And those are the margins that are going to make the difference this summer and will make the difference in the next World Cup. It's not gargantuan differences, actually. It's the difference between that Gareth Bale penalty and the subs that we made against England, really.
It is
in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it is interesting that I can't remember which manager was it, the manager of Netherlands maybe, who said, that U.S. team, and I don't think it was the Dutch manager now that I think about it, plays I've never seen a national team play like a club team ever. Now you can take that as a compliment if you want. During the World Cup, I guess that was a compliment. I don't know. I'm not sure. But should it look like a club team? Should that team look that constipated? Now they smoothed out the edges during the World Cup, but they were still pretty much clinically coached during the World Cup. And we are talking about players who play for AC Milan, Juventus. We're not talking about, we go back to my era. If we had a player in the Premier League, it was a goddamn miracle playing on a rail, or any team. Fulham, that was just, you played at Fulham, that was great. Now we got two guys that play at Fulham. And we've had more than that before. But I'm saying now we got guys playing in Champions League, or at least in top 5 leagues, on the top teams in those top 5 leagues. So I think we do have a right to expect something more. And these people, they're like, well, all those players are just overrated. Can that really be true? No, I don't think so. But
So do we need to listen to any more of the word salad? I think we got the gist of what he was saying. Oh, no, he actually talks about being on the hot seat.
Go ahead, Meg.
No, let's listen to the hot seat. I forget what I was going to say. I think I was just going to agree with you, basically.
Okay. You got cut off there for a second. So, yeah, we will buy you a new router.
Live with the pressure.
Sorry.
I don't think there's any pressure that the outside can put on us, or me personally, that I don't put on myself. So we're very focused on achieving our goals and doing well in Copa America.
So I don't believe that there's any more pressure that the outside can put on myself that I don't already do myself, basically is what he said. But there's a decent population of U.S. men's national team Twitter that has been hounding #fire Gregg or Berhalter out for the last 2-3 years. I don't think Berhalter sits there at night every night going man, I better get fired. Better get out of here as soon as possible. So I don't know. Again, I think it's just a bunch of word salad. Doesn't really explain if he has success, if he should be fired from.
Well, we don't know what success is. That's the problem. Yeah. In the end, that's the problem. All right. I guess we're moving to another topic, right, Brett?
Yeah. That was the only thing. It was the only timestamp we had was that clip.
And we thought, Meg, that topic would take 10 minutes.
Sorry.
No, that's not on you.
Welcome to our day-to-day, actually. We're always like, man, we've got no topics today. This should be a short show, 30 minutes at max. 2.5 hours later, what the fuck happened?
Well, that's the amazing thing. Meg was on our show, and outside of Simon Allen, the Dalai Lama of soccer, who no longer has a podcast, I don't think.
He does.
And does he? Yep. Does he still do it? Yep. Okay. Yep. Meg, you were the second longest show. Well, no, I think Bill Archer might have topped you too. Bill Archer. Now, Bill Archer is he's an old guy. I think he's in his 70s now, but for 40 years wrote soccer articles. So look up Bill Archer if you haven't heard of him, Meg. He is one of the OGs, I guess. Is that what Max Bretos would refer that?
Yeah.
And you are also the third guest we've had on in 4 shows, which is absolutely insane. We've had Max on, we had Tactical Manager on, along with Brett Oppenheim. And who else do we have on? Am I missing somebody? So 3 out of 4 shows with guests. We don't do guests anymore for the most part. So
it's been a bit, yeah.
Yeah. AJ1410, blah, 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 blah. For $1.99 says, does Meg rate Soto over Jesus too? Much love to Meg. I think he's referring to that Sebastian Soto who plays at Klagenfurt.
Over Jesus Pereira?
Yeah, I don't. He's joking.
He's adamant about that.
I don't have the most intricate opinion. Jesus Pereira.
Yeah, I think
is this an internal straight red card?
I think it's a joke because we've been covering Sebastian Soto for I don't know, the 2 years we've been back.
Plus,
yeah. And then when Sebastian Soto moved to Klagenfurt, we do cover when he has played. Now he did take a break and went out into the mountains in a cabin for a while in the Alps, and then he came back. So we expect Sebastian Soto to be playing this year for Klagenfurt, not riding pine. We hope. We'll see.
Much of it is in the indication that he's rating a player who hasn't played much more than 180 minutes in the last 3 years compared to over Jesus Ferreira. Basically, he's saying he doesn't rate Ferreira.
Do you feel like Ferreira should have been allowed to go to Moscow?
Well, technically, he couldn't have, right? Yeah, he couldn't have because of
sanctions we have.
The financial sanctions that are on. So they should have looked at that deal and gone, that's not even going to happen because of the money. The money ain't going to be transferred because of the particular bans. I mean, I'm surprised there wasn't anybody else. That's my surprise, Meg.
Yeah. I feel a little bit bad for him. It seems like he would have been interested in some kind of move, but
I think he may finally acknowledging the fact that he has.
Season.
Yeah, he may be acknowledging the fact that if he has any ambitions for the U.S. men's national team, he'll probably have to go abroad at this point. And he'll have to, I guess, sack up and take the chance.
Sack up.
Well, I thought that was the cleanest way to put it there.
Well, we'll see. Yeah.
I mean, that's a clean version. Brett is right. We say worse on this show. Fumar Mota says Otasowie better than Soto. Oh, man. I know. We're all picking on the guys that are falling apart.
Are we talking about modeling careers?
Otasowie doesn't even play for the Club Brugge 2 team. It's kind of sad. And he was a promising player at one point when he was at Wolves. So, everybody thought, Otasowie. But, I mean, here's a guy who has regular arguments with whatever manager is managing him, and including Gregg. And I don't know if you're privy to any of that. But, Otasowie, rough time. All right, where are we going to next,
So,
Brett?
Meg, I want to address a topic that Derek has let me know that you actually wrote about recently. And that is the apology Lindsay had to give after calling U.S. women's national team fans stupid, apparently. Not quite, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't.
So, I guess
that's not what she meant, but yeah.
Well, I think there are some people who were offended, and some people could see what she was trying to say.
Right.
I think that's what it was.
Well,
now, I guess the big question is, do you think she should have apologized?
I think that she probably had to. I'm sure that the PR team has talked to her about it. It seemed to me like it came from the heart, though. I think that she probably observed the reaction that happened online in article form. I did write about it and rebut her argument personally. I think we can get into what she meant versus how it was taken or how it was spun, but I think that she genuinely wanted to apologize. That was my perception of her apology, and it was an interesting apology, and I think it's good that she did it, and hopefully we move on. I think that she's not the first U.S. women's national team player to allege that the fan base is not the most sophisticated.
Ultimately, her main point was in that very small portion of the interview was that there's a portion of the fan base that literally just listens to the commentators and listens to the pundits and just takes what they say to heart and without actually acknowledging with their own eyes.
Yeah,
and calling them dumb. It probably wasn't the best of ideas, but again, anybody who wasn't looking to get offended could have read that snippet and said, "Okay, I see what she means," because there's context behind it.
Yeah, I guess my perspective on her comments are twofold. One is there is merit into what she was suggesting interesting, and I see where she was coming from to your point, but my kind of rebuttal to it is, especially in terms of the women's side of the game, and as someone who like grew up watching the Sixers and the Eagles, and find me the sports fans that aren't dumb, find even, and people will point to soccer being like the 5th most or 6th most popular sport. Find me the NFL fan base that doesn't have a lot of morons following it, repeating what the announcers say. So I guess I wonder, like, she has a point, and I guess I get what she was trying to say, but I don't know that it's entirely unique to US soccer, actually, in the way that she suggests. And I think especially when it comes to women's soccer, and a lot of her examples, especially in her apology, pointed toward the men's game. And she pointed to wanting the team to be talked about the way, Messi in his prime era, Barcelona was being talked about, or Arsenal and Man City now for the men are being talked about. But for the women's side of the game, I think that the US women are not just front runners in terms of their success on the national team level. They're also front runners in terms of having stadiums that are full of fans. There's front runners in terms of having fans. And in France, like, you look at the number of people who are going to her games in France, and it's like 600 people a game. So it feels kind of unfair to paint the Americans as being unsophisticated, when part of it is just that there's a lot more, I think, fans this side of the Atlantic. So she has a point, but I would be curious to know what fan base isn't dumb, first of all. And second of all, I think in the women's game, it's a bit different because there's not as many fans. If when you follow the women's game, there's certain countries that do a really good job of caring about the game. Sweden, the Netherlands, England, but it's not everyone, actually. So I think it's a little bit unfair for her, especially coming from France, where maybe they're lagging behind in that front, to paint it that way.
Well, I would just say this, that there's always going to be a percentage of people who are dumb. And there's just no way around that at all. Like,
I feel sorry for all of them too.
That's just how life works. Like, some people are dumb. They're just dumb. Like, technically, mathematically, I'm not talking about mathematics.
It's not
I'm
us,
though. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, clearly not us.
And that's not to be elitist, by the way.
Peasants.
One of the smartest guys I ever met had, this is in college. This guy had an 89 or a 92 IQ. I can't remember what it was, but he was in college, and this guy worked relentlessly. And so he was dumb, but he wasn't ignorant. He wasn't ignorant. I'll give him that. He read every newspaper. He was very focused on his classes. But I mean, I think a lot of it is more ignorance, I think, than dumbness. There's dumb. There's nothing you can do about dumb, but there is ignorance as well. And there are people who don't educate themselves. They're not dumb people, but they just read the basic article and they just flow with it. But that's not just in soccer. That's in football, American football. That's in baseball. That's in politics. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You just can't read the headline and move on. You can't. And even if you read the article, you might be screwed.
Completely. No, completely. People lack critical thinking skills, I think, increasingly, alarmingly. Like, people don't think for themselves. They don't wonder. They don't read something and say why, or what are the facts here, and do I agree, and what do I think? Like, increasingly societally, as you mentioned, Derek, I think that's an increasing problem in our society. So yeah, I think that, like, the larger a fan base you have, the more likely it is that you have a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about. And the U.S. women's national team and the NWSL, but they're very different fan bases. And the NWSL are very dedicated fans that probably do have more nuanced knowledge of the game on like a tactical level. The national team, it's a huge cultural. They have a lot of cultural sway and controversy, but a lot of people pay attention that have no idea what they're talking about. So if that's what she meant, yeah, fair, completely. But like, you compare that to, whoever's paying attention to the Eagles when they make the Super Bowl. And, I feel the same way. There's a lot of people paying attention all of a sudden that don't know the game. It's interesting, like, I think Matt Turner was asked about it, and he definitely seemed to agree with her. And did you guys see the interview that he did with ESPN? And he was asked about it too.
I did. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did. Yeah. It was on the Her Concept show, which is called something else.
We pull up so many articles and interviews and stuff like that. I've lost track at this point.
No, it was on Her Concept
but
show.
It was completely fair, but I guess my only point, my only point was that he seemed to say that he wouldn't have said it in so many words that she said it, but that in Nottingham or with Forest fans, you know, they grow up with the game. It's the most popular game there, and fans, when they see something happen, they understand like the intricacy of getting out of tight situations with a little 1-2 type of thing. And you know, on the one hand, that's fair. On the other hand, you know, I've been to a lot of football or soccer games in England, and to imagine that they're all sitting there having nuanced tactical takes in the stadium is fanciful. A lot of them are like throwing obscene gestures at you, and
I just imagine everybody in England are sitting there drinking tea the entire time.
Yeah, like not quite, you know. So I think we sometimes can be over self-deprecating or like have incorrect ideas of how sophisticated everyone else is compared to us. So yeah, she's right. Like, sure, a lot of American soccer fans are dumb. From my perspective, I'm not offended, but I don't know if that's a completely accurate take, especially in terms of the women's side of things.
Well,
I'm not offended because she's not talking about me, so it doesn't matter.
It's
obviously not.
It's a horrible thing to say as a generality. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, I'm glad she came back and kind of fixed it. Would have liked her to. I mean, she explained it. So there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know
tend
if
to be on the line of never apologize because it never satisfies anybody.
You know, she should. Maybe she didn't need to
point.
apologize.
Well, she's the captain, so there's that kind of
sure
PR duty.
She could have said, "I'm going to come out. I want to clarify my comments." She
Yes,
didn't need to apologize. I mean, that would have worked for me. I don't know if it would have worked for the dummies, but you know, that is what it is. It would have worked for me personally. I didn't feel offended. I didn't feel like she was talking about me. I mean, she called her own mom dumb in the original article, basically. So she's like,
if you were her mom, would you have been upset by that?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it is to be a mom.
Yeah.
I told you that on the phone. You just told me thanks.
No, I had got a mom, so I can empathize at the least bit. But yeah, it reminds me of that song by The Doors. What is it? People are dumb when you're a smarty. Women are.
Isn't it people are strange?
It is. It is. Oh, sorry. I'm a music guy, so everything turns into a song for me.
Every show, I just think Derek is strange.
Derek is strange. All right, what are we moving to next, Brett? It is a great song. What is it? People are strange when you're a stranger. Women are wicked when you're alone. Something like that. I don't know.
You know all the words.
I'm
you're
trying.
Like,
I'm trying. The memory's not working well.
Larry
Scorpion
says,
Larry.
everybody plays a fool.
Everybody plays a fool. Ooh, you can't name a song I don't know.
I can't tell if he was actually singing a song there, or if he was just singing the words that Larry said. I don't know.
No, that is a song. Everybody Plays the Fool is a song. Everybody plays the fool. Ooh. It's not the something, it's not the rule, it's not the exception or the rule, something
Derek,
like
before
that.
we get our channel struck, I'm going to move on, and we're going to move across the
I'm
pond
singing
here.
it so much like the original. We're going to get
I think
struck.
so, yeah. I think it's fantastic, Derek. I could hear more, but I'm choosing not to.
Okay.
We're going to go across the pond and talk about a player that we talk about possibly going to Nations League.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about Josh Sargent here for a second.
Oh, yes.
Apparently, it sounds like he's not going to Nations League.
What?
Well, Wagner on Sargent says, so we take it week by week. This week, he's good as he was good as he felt good after the game. Wow.
You can't read.
I can't read his. This week was good. There we go.
In the back of my
an extra E in there.
In the back of my head is the international break when we can give them a longer break. So apparently, and this is not a surprise to Norwich fans. Yes, I said Norwich, not Norwich.
Norwich.
even though that's how it was originally pronounced in 1812, 1811, Norwich. All right. So because of accents, they
It evolved from Norwich to Norwich.
Yes.
Is that right?
Based on accents. Yeah, at the time.
As Derek has indicated, it's also the same way as Gnawbone, Indiana is Gnawbone.
No, that's totally different. That's a different spelling. It used to be Nabon, Indiana, but nobody could say it. So they said Gnawbone, and then they just freaking changed the name of the town to Gnawbone. Anyhow, as I was saying, he's been kept out of the game. Sargent's not playing any more than 60, 65 minutes a game regardless. So this is not surprising. It shouldn't be surprising. What is surprising is that he's not going to be released for Nations League. That's tragic.
I mean, I guess from a Norwich standpoint, I wouldn't want him to go.
Mm-hmm.
He's been gone for so long. Now they're they're vying for promotion. Yeah, absolutely. I would say no. Fake an illness, fake an injury, you're not going anywhere.
It's interesting from Sargent's perspective, though, because we have a lot of strikers that are in form. He arguably the most in form among them, and this is like the window to kind of say to Gregg, bring me to Copa America. If I'm Josh, I want to go to Copa America, and I'm thinking this is my chance. I'm in form. I want to come into Nations League. If he's not called into Nations League, and what Pepe and Ballo are, it's I don't know. From his perspective, I would want to go to Nations League. So it's interesting to think about whether or not he has any say in that.
And David Wagner's half American. So come on, David. Cut us some slack, baby. Let him go.
To your point, though, it's got to be tough if he doesn't go to Nations League and Ballo and Pepe do go. One would have to imagine, barring an injury, that most likely Ballo and Pepe would be the strikers come Copa.
Yeah. And people have suggested, like maybe we hold off on Pepe for the Olympics because he's Olympic eligible and we spread it out like that. But, to the interview that we just had up with Gregg, he was asked about that. I don't know if he was asked about the strikers specifically, but he was asked certainly about, thinking about maybe holding off some players for the Olympics versus the Copa America. And he said something along the lines of, well, the Copa America, is the major tournament. That's the one that we're going to be using as preparation really over the Olympics. The Olympics is beholden to clubs wanting to release players first of all, so you can't count on it. So he seemed to indicate like the Copa roster is the first team roster. Like there's no long game thinking about the Olympic roster. And yeah, I would think that if Pepe deserves to be in that roster, that's the roster he'll be in, regardless of his eligibility for the Olympics. So yeah, if I'm Josh Sargent, I'm trying to get into this Nations League roster because of that.
Here's the issue with the Olympics this time around. We got Leagues Cup going on at the same time, so MLS players, any MLS player worth his salt is not going to be going to the Olympics because of Leagues Cup. I mean, potentially, especially if you play in Chicago. If you're in Europe and you mean anything to your team whatsoever, if you're Marlon Fossey, the starting right back of, in Belgium, you're not going to the Olympics because your team's not releasing you. And I don't think Pepe's going to be released by PSV. He is the sole backup for, well, at this point, not only De Jong, but now he's the last two games played left winger. Because guess who? Chucky Lozano's having a horrible season. He just had a horrible game. So they're not going to release him. And in fact, any player worth their salt in Europe is not going to be released. Not even Griffin Yao is going to be released. Brian Reynolds, they're not letting those two guys go. They need those guys to stay up in that case and compete in Belgium. So, I mean, I don't know who you're going to get for the Olympics. And I think anybody thinking this Olympic team is going to be, an amazing team. You're just not paying attention at this point because I think it's going to be a U21, 23 squad of guys who really don't get much playing time on their clubs in MLS or in Europe.
I doubt Cal's going to get released. You're probably going to look at a Olympic striker like Sonogo.
Yeah.
who hasn't been
Honestly.
brought up in a while, but he's still playing with the youth squads. So, yeah, that's the tricky thing with the Olympics. You have to go with your A squad on the Copa because you can't rely on the Olympics.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. So yeah, if I'm Josh Sargent and I'm eligible to be in the Nations League, I want to be there. And he is arguably the most informed striker right now. I mean, Balogun is kind of struggling at the minute,
Yep.
but it's debatable. Like, how would you guys start him from your perspective?
Well, we're a little bit of
I would say yes.
Yeah, we're Sergeant Snugglers here. So yeah, we right now prefer Sergeant overall, although my second pick is actually Pepe. And it's not just because Balogun's having a rough time. It's also, all right, we're talking about Gregg. Who fits into Gregg's system? Really?
Yes.
Does Balogun? No,
No.
he doesn't. And even Gregg said, we haven't figured out how to use him. I don't think you're going to figure out a way to use him based on how we play, where the 9 is asked to do a lot of hold-up play and distribution. That's not Balogun's game. Balogun is running between lines. That's what he does. Well, we don't do a lot of that. And you're hoping we get more of that because Reyna's starting at center attacking midfielder. But, yeah, I don't know. It's still not happening. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Scorpion Larry for $2. Wagner. I guess if he's American or half, we can say Wagner. But,
Yeah.
okay. Wagner knows USA is FUBAR and fans are dumb. Oh God, our super chats are they are just delicious. Mwah! They are chef's kiss. All right, thank you, Larry. We appreciate it. And Larry, you've been around a long time. I know we don't always agree, but thank you for supporting the show on a constant basis. Go ahead.
So one thing that we talked about, because obviously the issue is that Gregg's probably going to go with what's comfortable, and he's been calling up Balogun regardless of his season, and he's been calling up Pepe regardless of playing time, but he is scoring goals. We did talk about with Sargent's versatility that he might get called in as a viable option as a winger.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and that goes for Haji Wright.
But this is such a nice photo of these two wingers that you
I know.
traumatic.
It's hard, and we got to realize who's going to be just behind them as far as
backups,
because our wing depth. We at one point we sat there and thought like, our wings we got a lot of options here, but now, man, they've been falling one after another. I mean, Zendejas royally sucked last couple times he's been called up. Brendan Aronson's been on a crap streak for about a year and a half.
Paredes is just getting going.
Yeah. So I mean, we're running low on viable options. I mean, Haji Wright's the other option at wing because he's playing there for
Coventry City.
Coventry City, thank you. Keep butchering that name. So.
Go for it. I feel like these are and Weah's, his playing time is not exactly secure at the minute, but yeah, I feel like these two guys, Pulisic and Weah, are the starting wingers still. They're understudies. Yeah, they're understudies, though. I agree with you. I mean, it's kind of a depleted force from what did feel like one of the stronger areas of the field for us. But there's a lot of people who can fill in there, like you said, Haji Wright. I mean, we've put Reyna there before. We could use him there.
Even mention it.
Yeah, let's not
even mention it.
Taylor Booth. There you go.
Too.
But he's injured. Yeah.
Injured, he's hoping to be back in a couple of weeks, is what he posted on Instagram.
Yeah, but I think he's out for Nations League 6 to 8 weeks. I think was his injury.
Yes.
Brendan Aronson is probably going to get called in.
What I said too.
Which he just scored. It was a great goal, great finish. But yeah, he's definitely struggled. So it's I think these are the starting wingers, and I think it's become surprisingly in the area of kind of uncertainty unexpectedly. Yeah, I'm with you there. But I imagine we have a number of people who can fill in. Maybe Haji Wright. Maybe a few others.
The reason we bring up Sargent is he played a crap load of winger at Norwich.
That's right. Yeah.
Norwich. And then before that at Bremen. So, and then with Haji Wright, he's been forced out left pretty much predominantly for most of the season for Coventry. He's scoring goals for fun as a left winger. So maybe the depth isn't as bad as we thought. If you call those two guys up now, we were just said that Sargent won't be called up because David Wagner is worried about his injuries. But you could at least call Haji, so you're not just relying on Aronson and Zendejas as your wingers. And with as much crossing as we do, Meg, we do a lot of crossing. If you got Weah crossing balls into the box, you want your left winger crashing the box, and you don't really need a small person crashing the box. You need a Haji Wright crashing the box. That's what made him so effective at Coventry so far this season. He's played off the left shoulder, and he cuts in when the ball's on the right side, and he's there in the box to head the ball in, get the scraps if needed. And so maybe that is a viable solution.
So Andrew 93 says Luca De La Torre has been playing out wide for Celta Vigo. Do you see him as a wing option?
Yes, I do, because he's played everywhere this season. He's played CAM, he's played CM, he's played RM, left M. I mean, the dude's played everywhere for Celta this season. Sorry, Meg.
I guess what's his wide position like at Celta? Because I haven't really watched many of his games.
Yeah, I
watched
can't.
some, but I don't know.
I was just going to say that I have not watched too many. I think I've watched like 2 or 3 of his games in the past few months, unfortunately. But
this is too many to catch.
Reliable. He's a reliable guy. Gotta.
He is, and I have to say, in the last game versus Barcelona, and most of the games this season, he's not been the problem for Celta. He has been the solution. He is a great tiki-taka, tappy-tappy, triangle guy. He's really good at that stuff. He's not slow. He's a workaholic, and I think he's been extremely solid. So I do see him as a possible wing option. I don't know if Gregg will go there, because I think he sees him mostly as a midfielder. There you go.
So it looks like so at Celta, when he plays out wide, he plays more or less an inverted winger. More or less a 10 is what we're seeing in the chat here.
No, the last 2 games they played a 4-4-2, and he played out as a was it right midfield? Right midfield. It was either left midfielder, right midfield. He did not play anywhere, but he has, to this person's point, played centrally throughout the season. So, I mean, this is a Swiss Army knife guy. He can play a lot of different places.
Okay. Well, Gregg's got his options to pick, and it'll be interesting. Well, probably less than interesting to see what he picks, because I'm going to say it's pretty safe to assume it's probably going to be Paredes and Aronson as the wing options. I don't think he's going to bring in Haji, and obviously we know it's not going to be Sargent. So
I'd like to see Haji come in, personally.
I would too. He's killing it in the championship.
I'd be for it.
Yeah. We actually called it the wing depth in our predicting the Nations League, or it wasn't the Copa, either way, it doesn't matter. We predicted that it was going to be Haji, and we initially said Haji and Sargent, and I mentioned that Brendan Aronson is going to be called in regardless. So then we got rid of Haji and kept Sargent out wide with Brendan as an option. But yeah, we definitely want to see Haji come in.
Yeah, but in this moment, I say Haji. I'm here for the Brendan redemption arc, but I don't think in this moment his one performance last weekend warrants it just yet. We'll see what happens. Maybe he mounts a comeback curve, but yeah, I'd like to see it be Haji, but I kind of probably agree with you with where they all stand at the minute.
I mean, this is one thing that Alexi did bring up in the interview with Gregg, is there should be no sacred cows. And right now, Aronson seems to be a sacred cow, even though we're on a year's struggle and he missed so many setters at the beginning of the season for Union Berlin. He isn't a starter, but he did just have the goal, as you said. So I'm with you. I want Aronson to come out of whatever he's in. His funk. Yeah.
I would also say that he is a player that when you talk to the other players, or when you talk to the coaching staff, that does really well in practice, that other players like playing with. I mean, as much as we might dislike it in terms of obvious results at the club level or even for the national team, he seems to be someone that has those factors maybe tip his call-ups in favor, kind of thing. The other guys want him there. He does well in practice. He pushes people in practice. So those things do work in his favor. But yeah, well, I mean, we'll see if he's if he kind of flatlines after last weekend's performance and we don't see anything else and he's still called in, then maybe I'll be willing to concede that he is an untouchable, but we'll see.
Yeah. By the way, how much time do you have? Because we're coming up on an hour, almost 2 hours. Meg?
I don't have anything else to do other than sleep. But
okay.
Sleeping's overrated.
Sleeping, yeah, absolutely. All right, what do you got, Brett?
Speaking of redemption arcs, we're looking at 2 men here who need to have them, and then because the big problem is without them being on form, our goalkeeping options are grim and grimmer.
Yeah. Massive problem out of nowhere. And it's interesting. Like, this used to be the one position that we really dominated with. We got by on dominant goalkeepers. The number of times, even when I saw Ethan Horvath in Luton. When I was talking to the other journalists there, or when I've been at games in the UK, that's the reputation that American players have, is that we produce good goalkeepers. A number of other journalists pointed that out to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they remember from the past few decades, is that we have great goalkeepers. That's not the case anymore as much. Not that these guys aren't good goalkeepers, but yeah, it's an interesting development that we kind of haven't continued that reputation.
We've talked about this, and we've had a theory, more or less, is basically we've always produced great shot stoppers. And if you go back through our quality goalkeepers in the past, great shot stoppers. The big difference is that the game has changed, and it's requiring more of the goalkeeper than just being a good shot stopper. And the problem is our development, the way we develop goalkeepers here in the States hadn't adjusted with it. So we're still produced. I mean, both these players are good shot stoppers, barring Turner's recent turn of events with Forest and a handful of more games. But they're both really good shot stoppers. I mean, a lot of our goalkeepers are. It's just the other aspects of the game are lacking.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to Casey Keller, he will tell you, I don't care how the game's changed. If I were still playing today, I'm booting the ball out. I ain't playing sweeper keeper. Screw that. I don't know what this new thing is.
Yeah. No, I think that's a huge part of it. And then I think the confidence too.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Matt Turner, I think that, you make a few mistakes. The stakes are so high. Maybe the defenders in front of you aren't doing a perfect job. And when you're the keeper, those margins are so fine. And I think for him, like making a few mistakes, the confidence, I think, is kind of eating at him. You get stuck in your own head. And with him maybe trying to turn into a keeper that you're not. Like in that same interview that he did with ESPN, they asked him, what kind of advice does the goalkeeping staff or the staff at Forest have for you? And he said that they tell him, don't be what you're not, like just be the keeper that you are. And I feel like maybe there's a little bit of trying to be the playing it out of the back goalkeeper. And then the confidence factor has gotten to him, because the other options at Forest, they're not exactly like the best keepers in the world. Like he can still, I think, work his way back in there if he gets the chance. When is their next FA Cup game? Is it next Wednesday? Like, maybe he gets another chance there. They think they play Manchester United. Who knows? He would need the other guy to make a bunch of mistakes, but yeah, it's a shame. I think for him, it's a little bit of confidence as much as ability. Ethan Horvath probably has found his level in the championship a little bit, and one hopes that he does well with Cardiff City.
Yeah, he'll do fine there at Cardiff, although that first game was rough. But yeah, you're right. It is about, and if you would ask me prior to this if Matt Turner would have a problem with confidence, I would have been like, well, no, he's not the kind of guy that has a problem with that. But yeah, been rough.
Yeah. I mean, to some extent, yeah, but then you see him in the game and it's like, who knows? Maybe not.
When the other team scores between your legs and then you roll over onto the field with your legs in the air and you're holding your face. And I mean, he looked humiliated. Like he was humiliated with himself.
Never do anything that's going to make you front page of the paper though, man. That whole going backwards and legs up in the air. You know you're going to be on the front page with that
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, by his former teammate, and then like the owner of the club is kicking the television, breaking a television after it, and that's going all over social media. Like I'm sure all of that gets in your head.
But now you got a guy who plays for the national team, for his national team in front of you. So no, is it impossible? No, it's not. It's not. But I doubt he will play the cup games. I think he will. But I think they're going to stick with what's it, Burles? Matty Burles? Mott Burles? I can't remember.
No. It's Seltz. Hold on.
SELS.
Yeah.
I say Sells, but I'm probably
Sells.
Yeah, he used to be with Newcastle, and he's
right. Rough times.
I don't think Turner's overtaking that position anytime soon. If they do, then Force is in deep trouble then, because they would have leaked in a ton of goals in a short amount of time when they need to get points. That FA Cup's definitely a viable option for them, because I don't think they're going to play Sells at that in that spot unless they move up, further in the competition. But yeah, it's a rocky patch right now.
Good old Vlad's getting screwed though in this deal, huh?
Yeah, I do. That's the thing. They brought him and Turner in. They brought Turner in, then like a week later they brought him in, and they fought for it. Turner came out ahead. I mean, I want to know how bad he was performing at practice. That we saw the performances that Turner was having on the game days, that he consistently got the playing time over him.
He was bad in the games though, Brett. Vlad was bad in the games.
Yeah.
That's why Turner took the spot. They are Twig Boy jokes.
So Larry is talking about our goalkeepers today and how they are how they're scrawny goalkeepers, because he talks about the Brad Friedels, the Tony Miolas, the Guzans, even the Howards, how they were always, bigger specimens in the box and command that box. And
Howard was a twig early on too. That's not fair. If you saw Howard play early on in his career, he was a twig too. So I don't like, if you saw Matt Turner in person, I don't think you describe him as a twig.
Yeah.
That's not fair. Now, Horvath's a skinny dude. That's true. But I don't know if like you look at some great goalkeepers, they're not all built like muscle men. You don't have to be Tony Miola. Tony Miola he's built. He's a big dude. That doesn't make a good goalkeeper necessarily.
He's still a good goalkeeper, but yeah.
All right, go ahead, Brett. Sorry.
Well, while we're in the neck of the woods, or Forest, I guess, let's talk about Gio's move to Forest. What are your takes on this? Because we've talked about this a number of times, and we've talked to Tact and had this discussion with a bunch of people about it. And Max.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's not perfect. It's not ideal. I don't think he had an ideal situation before him. I mean, I think his options, it seems, without being a fly on the wall and a part of the negotiations for him getting a loan out of Dortmund for this 4-month loan, I don't think he had that many great options. And it probably was like stay or go and see what happens. And I'm in favor of him going and seeing what happens at Forest, even though it's not an ideal situation. So for me, I think he'll get a chance from the bench. Like I'm starting, not playing last weekend isn't the end of the world to me. I don't think that was an expectation. Starting wasn't an expectation, certainly. Not playing isn't ideal, but he's going to have to work for minutes. That's what happens when you're just a lone player. Does he fit perfectly into their system? No. In their style of play? No. Are there people in his position ahead of him? Yeah. Is it a great, perfect fit? No. Is it better than what he was doing in Dortmund? Maybe. And so I guess from my perspective is I'll take the maybe and see what he does with it. And we'll see. And maybe it doesn't go well. But he has time. I think he has time to kind of work his way in there is where I'm at with it.
I mean, it's like you watched our show, because that's exactly what we say. It is so refreshing to hear that instead of panic, because Meg, what is the I guess what's the enemy of perfect? The enemy of perfect. You can't look for ideal. You can't, as you said, nothing's perfect. You're not going to find a perfect fit. There's no such thing. And with limited choices, as you said, I mean, you take what's better than where you are now. And this idea that he won't be able to learn from this experience playing on a team with less possession is exactly what we've been saying. He's going to learn how to play without the ball. He's going to have to learn to play defense. All these things are good. And then we have, we have people saying he's injury prone. They get the ambulances at the side of the field before. And that was our argument with Tack, which is why we had him on the show. And then I think Tack relented afterwards and went, okay, yeah, I guess he's not. I don't know if he said this, but, I think he kind of conceded this is not that bad of a move after we had him on the show and we had the debate. But yeah, it's good to hear you say that because I think too many people took the panic route on this one.
Yeah, I'm completely on the same page as you. Like, is it an incredible move? No, but he wasn't in an incredible situation. And so now he's going to figure it out in the Premier League. And even if it's just a growth of character, 4 months, it's just 4 months. And yeah, I'm not panicking by any means yet in terms of him not playing last weekend. And hopefully he earns his minutes and he gets his minutes and he figures out how to operate in a Premier League locker room and he works on some things off the field and on the field and we'll see what happens. But I'm not overly worried just yet about this move.
So I will say I'm kind of leaning into Tack's take on one thing is since there is no buy option and he's not going to be at Forest next season, what would be the purpose, Nuno, of actually giving him more minutes? Now, he has a great player off the bench who's going to be able to offer offensive options. If he doesn't need the offensive option, say they're up and they want to ride out the game like this past week, you don't need to sub him in. So that might not be necessarily the best case. But I will say when he does come in, and then there are some circumstances, whether it's being up a man or just coming in late in the match, when he does come in, I think he changes how Forrest plays because he slows the ball down, they move it around, they open up the lanes, and they have opportunities on goal, not necessarily on goal, but opportunities to get on goal that haven't necessarily came to fruition at this point. But the options are there, and it's not necessarily the English style of get up the pitch real fast, get it out wide, play it across, which is what we see a good chunk of the games prior to it.
He definitely adds variability in how they play at the minute. And I don't know that he'll need to prove that he deserves the minutes. And I do think that there is a disincentive to playing him, as you mentioned, that like there's no buy option. So that definitely does play a factor in terms of minutes. But the minutes that he's gotten, he has impressed actually. And he has been physical. And the things that like we criticize him for, like he gets knocked over easy or he's not he was getting physical and he was winning balls and stuff like that when he did get minutes. So I guess I'm still in the we'll see phase, even though the caveats are warranted.
Yeah, I mean he's not a small guy. He's not Aronson. He's 6'1". I said 6'2" before, and somebody's like, "Oh, he's 6'1". Oh, I'm sorry. I gave him an extra.
Big difference.
Inch.
He's as big as your former ex-IU girlfriend, IU basketball girlfriend.
Right, and my 20s. But also this idea that I know there's no, and we were making jokes about that earlier. Yes, she did kiss me on the forehead. I am 5'11", she's 6'2". Yes, she used to kiss me on the forehead.
Adorable.
The whole no buy option thing. I will say this. I will say there's no such thing as a no buy option. If Nottingham Forest survive this go. If they want to break out the big bucks for Reyna, they can do it. Basically, the no buy option thing it's just there's no clause for that, and that's fine. But it's not the end of the world. If they really want to buy them, they can.
It's no guarantee that Dortmund would sell at the end of the season.
That's correct.
They have the option to throw down a ridiculous sum, and Dortmund could be like, okay. Right. I guess it all depends on whether or not Gio's having fun at Forest at that point.
Right. If he wants to stay, if he wants to go. So there's no such thing as necessarily a no buy. You can always buy anything you want if you're willing to slap down the cash. So
no, that's true. That's a good point.
Yep.
John
Oh, so we bring.
I'm
this
really
up-
enjoying this like photo. Like the next topic, the Brett.
Brett is great at this. So I just want to thank you, Meg, because not that you said, oh yeah, there's this horrible thing going on, but you said, there's some tension there. And so I was able to kind of dig deeper in it. And after you said that, and make a few phone calls and send out a few emails, and I got a little bit more information after all that came out when we had original discussion, what, a year and a half ago, 2 years
A long time ago. I think the last time we talked was like I was in Costa Rica for World Cup qualifying.
Yep.
And I think that my connection was also, every time we do this, my internet is getting cut off. So sorry about
Don't
that.
even mention your connection. It's going great.
You're in Costa Rica. That way you always have plausibility there. Yeah, the internet here in Costa Rica is the worst.
But we just want to thank you for giving us sort of a tip that I was able to take further. And later on, we found out about the halftime incident, and that there was an incident at halftime in Honduras, and that things were said, nasty words exchanged, a shoe apparently thrown. I guess that's probably conjecture, but that's what it was told. Anyhow, yes, that there was an issue between the two, and that, we would have guests on after we did the research, and people would be like, I don't know what you're talking about with this Brooks thing, but okay, if you say so. But now it's pretty much common, a given that there is a riff, and has been a riff.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a shame. Like, I think that you're privy to what happened with John Brooks, and you could argue as well, like, should he be called in this moment right now? I don't know that I would actually, but he definitely just got disappeared.
Well, after that
from the
window,
national team picture, and that's a little bit of a shame.
Yeah, after that window with the epic meltdown, obviously he wasn't going to be in the next window because he had bowed out. He had a back spasm, allegedly.
That's a quotation marks.
Yeah. And then every window after that, because there was the apology tour. He came out and he said, "Hey, blah blah blah." He apologized. I think he apologized, and he said, he just wants to play, etc. My door. I want the U.S. men's national team to always be open, available to me. Gregg said something very similar, but every window that came along, there was always some new excuse. There was like he's not informed, despite the fact that he was having the best second half of the season of his recent career. At that point back at Wolfsburg. Then it was like he can't play the high line, but then we bring in Tim Ream during the World Cup. I mean, there's just excuse after excuse after excuse, and it's just like I think there's a portion of the fans that started recognizing that, well, even without knowledge of what happened in that match where with the meltdown, people were starting to realize, well, there's clearly something amiss here.
For sure. And I mean, at that point in time, he was doing really well. And I think it was more glaring that he wasn't getting called in, because compared to the other center backs, he was doing well at a high level, and maybe not as many other center backs in the pool were. At this point in time, I don't feel this way as much in terms of like he needs to come in right now. But yeah, then I feel like it was kind of clear that we talked about this a little bit, like in terms of like, has Gregg evolved? And in terms of roster selection or bringing in players, I think he has a little bit. Like, I don't have qualms as much with who he's calling in as maybe 2 years ago. How do you guys feel about that? Like, when I see the rosters come in,
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So I would say that's one major evolution. Yeah. Sorry, my internet. I'm talking over you guys.
Oh, you're fine. Okay. I was talking over Derek, actually.
No, you're right. I mean, that's the one thing you cannot fault Gregg for recently is I think the rosters have been solid. And that he has also evolved to trying, you can say it's because of Adams. I don't know if it's just because Adams isn't there, but trying the 4-2-3-1 and playing Reyna as your CAM. I mean, we've been barking and asking and begging for Reyna to start as a CAM instead of a winger for ages now. And I tell you what, that first half against Germany, he looked great as a CAM in that 10 spot. And once he left the game, the Germans failed to respect us anymore. They really did. They're like, whatever. You're not Gio Reyna, so we're not really worried about whoever you are. But that guy, we know. We've seen him in the Bundesliga. We're worried about that guy, but we're not worried about whatever putts you roll out in his replacement spot. Now, I'm not saying whoever they rolled out was putts, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, there's merit. I mean, I think that's to some extent true. And I don't know if this is in Gregg's favor or like, I guess to argue that not everything is Gregg's fault. It's just that we may not have the depth we always think we do in terms of being able to replace Gio or being able to replace Christian or Weston when they come off the field. You know, like I don't know that we have the same caliber of player quite yet, even though we do have more players like Johnny or whoever it might be, or Malik Tillman, who like could be just as good and are playing at increasingly higher levels. But yeah, there's a big drop off, I guess I would say, between Gio and whoever's coming in for him in that position.
Well, I think Tillman, thankfully, is maybe outside of all the chances and the goals that he just missed for PS, because that guy could have scored 3 goals in the first 20 minutes of that game versus Dortmund.
He's so much fun to watch, isn't he? It's like very perfect for now.
He's great. And I do think there's a drop off from Tillman to Reyna, but I do think Tillman's closing the gap fast. And I think he's been quite impressive.
And he was also injured that Germany window too. So when we brought Reyna out, we brought Luca De La Torre, and all of a sudden we had a Luca De La Torre, Musa, McKinney trio, and it was completely flat, and nobody stepped up to play the more advanced role.
Yeah.
But that brings me to something as far as something Gregg hasn't really evolved in, is his ability to do game day match management, like just player management as the game progresses. Because if you're taking out your only offensive option, your creative midfielder, and you're throwing in another 6/8, mainly predominantly 8, but you don't have any creativity in the midfield, sometimes you may have to adjust how the formation works. Maybe instead of throwing in Luca De La Torre at that point, unless you're subbing out Musa or McKinney, you throw in a second striker, you pull your wings back a bit and pinch them in and change the formation up a little bit, a little more, bring the creativity elsewhere instead of continually trying to stick that square peg into a round hole. So
that's good point.
Yeah, no, that's completely valid. And I sticking a square peg into a round hole is kind of a good metaphor for a lot of Gregg's tenure, I think. But yeah.
All right.
So have you been keeping up with the US Open Cup debacle, Meg?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's been hard to not get caught into it over the past week. Giant mess shrouding what would have been an exciting start to a new season for Major League Soccer.
That's going to take me to the tweet I'm going to actually bring up here. Derek, I'm going to bring up a quick recap unless that's what you're going to do.
Okay.
So the quick recap is US Open Cup is starting. MLS throws a hissy fit, doesn't want to play their seniors in there. So they say they're going to play their next pro. US Soccer comes out and says, no, you can't do that. You're going to have to play your senior squad in there. And that's kind of where we're at now. And there's some change of events here, but that's the bulk of it all. And now it looks like there's going to be a hybrid system where like 8 teams are going to participate from MLS. And then there's talks where it's going to be the 8 teams plus all the other teams are going to play their next pro team. Nothing's been ironed out completely at this point, but what we do know is that it appears that US Soccer kind of went belly up and let MLS have their way to an extent. And then they're going to renegotiate a year from now as far as what it's going to look like. So before I bring up the tweet, Derek, do you have something you want to add to that?
I just don't know if they've gone belly up completely yet, because I haven't seen the final solution. I thought there was a chance that Batson would just say, the reason we're not negotiating with MLS is because screw them, they're going to play this tournament. But now, based on the subcommittee reports, that only a portion of MLS is now going to take part in the US Open Cup. But I don't know that to be true.
Yeah, it's also it's very opaque, isn't it? Like who is on this subcommittee and why is there an opaque subcommittee when we had a committee and the people who were on the committee have all had to resign, some of them under threat. Like the head of the committee was, he stepped down, and he was being threatened to step down, so he stepped down. And then Stu Holden has come out, and he went on the Alexi Lala's podcast and said he had no idea what was happening. Like 2 days ago, so the actual committee had no idea what was happening, but an unnamed 8-person subcommittee that includes several members of the board is in charge, and it's just all very strange.
Oh, it's dysfunctional as hell, because I've run nonprofits before, and if I have a committee that's supposed to be handling, let's say, the events section, like this is the events committee, and then I'm like, yeah, you're all a bunch of fucking nimrods. I'm going to pick a subcommittee from the actual board, and they're going to make the decisions. Like, how offensive is that? How dysfunctional is that? That is super dysfunctional.
Yeah. And I mean, as Swimmer mentioned, I mean, Garber definitely sits on the USSF board. Whether or not he's part of the subcommittee, I don't know that. Like you said, I don't know if they've really announced that, who the part of that subcommittee is. I know USL's not happy, and we'll get into a bit here on them. But like I said, U.S. Soccer had all the power. They had all the cards. They gave D1 sanction to MLS, and one of the requirements is that you have to participate in the tournament, the U.S. Open Cup. U.S. Open or MLS kicks back, and like I said, they've gone to a hybrid where there's only a portion of the team's going to be playing in it, and I feel like that's, like I said, kind of USSF going belly up in this front.
If that's in fact what happens.
True.
Yeah.
So
just from ESPN, just from like notes I have. So from Jeff Carlisle, he said that the subcommittee was formed in December, which this whole thing, it was reported mid-December that MLS was planning to send MLS Next Pro instead of their senior teams, like December 15th. And then somewhere in that time frame, the subcommittee was then formed. And there's 7 members, and I don't know if anyone knows who those 7 members are. So yeah,
but it is dysfunctional, and you have to ask yourself: did Batson get rid of the actual committee, because the actual first committee that was formed was actually negotiating with MLS, and he's like, no, screw that. They're playing in the Open Cup. So now I'm going to form a subcommittee. Or is it the worst case scenario where Batson's like, they're negotiating, but their negotiations are sucking. So I'm going to form a subcommittee that's going to wrap this baby up. And, but we're still going to go belly up and, make concessions. If you're making concessions, they don't have to make concessions, because they can just say, hey, I'm shutting the door in your face.
Well, I mean,
do you think it's like a power struggle? Like who? It's just a little bit of it's a power struggle between MLS and U.S. Soccer in terms of who's in charge here exactly. We have the people who are alleged to be the regulatory body, and then we have the cash cow and the Division I program. And I don't know, like Batson has seemed to be a likable character from my perspective, as has Cindy Parlow-Cohn, and they have seemed to be very supportive of the Open Cup, actually. So I'd be surprised if they're the ones pulling the strings, but a lot of this is happening in the shadows. So I don't know.
Well, how about this, Meg? So MLS is saying, well, this competition sucks and it's a bad competition. We play on high school fields with crap fields and it's poorly marketed and nobody cares about it. Okay, but who actually marketed the U.S. Open Cup for years? That would be some. Some is the marketing body of Major League Soccer. So if they're going to take responsibility of pointing fingers of ruining the U.S. Open Cup and making it a crap competition that's poorly marketed, weren't they marketing it for 17 years and running it? I mean, it's unbelievable to me.
Like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What's fascinating is that somebody's bringing up how like it's not really, the cup doesn't do great, blah blah, et cetera, et cetera. And the U.S. Open Cup's official Twitter handle chimed in and said, actually last year, which would have been their first year running it by U.S. Soccer, they saw record growth in the TV views on CBS. I think it was Sports Channel, and I think it was the Bleacher Report's page or whatever they did on whatever the two avenues were. But they saw record numbers as far as viewers were concerned from the previous years. So it seems like there may be even an uptick.
Well, part of that could be that Messi was involved, and that could also be part of why. I think that a few things are happening here. Like, I think very likely MLS never loved. They probably begrudgingly participated. It's not something they control. It's not something they profit from. MLS is a business, and as a business, they're looking over their bottom line. It's on U.S. Soccer to be the ones who are safeguarding the growth of the game and the culture of the game. It's U.S. Soccer who need to be stepping in here. MLS is looking after their profits. You could see their perspective, hate them as you might, in terms of like, well, you're the ones who created the congested calendar. You created Leagues Cups. You can make more money. But it seems kind of obvious that the Open Cup is not something they control. It's not something that they profit from. And Garber has made comments in the past few days, it seems, that have come out in The Athletic that point toward that exactly, that they feel like there's an undue burden on them in terms of making the Open Cup function. And to some extent, okay, fine. U.S. Soccer needs to do more to make this make sense monetarily for you. They need to make it more appealing for your teams to participate. Fine. But yeah, U.S. Soccer needs to make it keep happening. And then in terms of MLS, I think that I would just say that I wouldn't underestimate the Messi or Apple TV factor in all of this, because as you said, Brett, like viewing might have gone up last year, but Inter Miami made a run with Lionel Messi as part of that, and maybe that's what made MLS be like, you know what, we're not doing this anymore because this whole thing happened and that didn't hit our bottom line, and here we had this whole Messi thing and we bent over backwards bringing Messi to MLS, and so he didn't make a playoff run, but he made an Open Cup run. How does that benefit us? So I think that could actually be a huge factor.
It's a lot of the same arguments that we've made over the past week or so, as far as it's a debate as far as control and money. And I do have those quotes from Garber pulled up here, and we'll go over those in just a second. I did want to pull up the this tweet specifically because here's U.S. Soccer cheering on MLS starting the new season in the midst of being, talked down to by said organization. So MLS is kind of like, your
but
cup is bullshit, blah blah blah.
It's not surprising though, Brett.
It's not surprising. I know that. I'm just saying it's kind of hilarious that it comes. I mean, obviously it's that time of year, of course, but it also comes at the same time that MLS is basically spurning their heels at them. Saying, fuck you guys.
What are they going to do? Throw a hissy fit and ignore the MLS start of the season? I mean, they got to say something. I mean, it's not like they, I don't know, whipped it out in public or something. They just basically said what they, they just basically said, hey, I'm excited for the season to start. I don't think that's a big deal. I mean, they got to do that. It's the Division I of, the leagues they sanction. So they're going to have to say something. I don't think they did anything outrageous there, but there is a conflict going on. There's no doubt about that. And it is a power play. My only problem with it is that you look at the Pokal, you look at FA Cup, you look at all the cups across Europe. Teams have to play teams that have like 600 fans in the fucking stadium. That's just how it works. That's how Open Cups work. So to complain about that, to me, is ridiculous. And, it is ignoring the grassroots. And go ahead.
You have 28 to 30 players on your senior roster.
Yes.
Sit your starting 11 at home and send the remaining 19 or 15 to 19 players to wherever you want to go to play at some high school. Those players would love to play those games.
Yes.
So, Pete does have a response to JT though on that whole thing. Said you let MLS break the PLS standards, and now you're promoting the league that just told you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I get it, but they don't really have any choice. They got to support the first division. Like that inside fighting is something they're going to do behind closed doors. We all know that. And then otherwise they're going to go along, as it is, right? They're going to say, this is the job. We're U.S. Soccer. We're going to support the Division I league, at least with a short tweet. It's a short tweet.
Again, I just don't know if it's even necessary to even bring up. I mean, do they do the same thing for USL, USL 1, and whatever, NISL?
I don't. Well,
Do they go all the way down the do they do it for the U.S. sanctioned indoor leagues?
Oh, well, I'm sure they don't do it for the indoor league. I don't know. Maybe they say something about USL. I don't know. I don't like. It's not like U.S. Soccer has a prolific Twitter account. So
no, their social media is pretty horrific as a whole. So in the Athletic, they mentioned how all 47 clubs of USL Soccer are going to participate in the Nations League, Open Cup. But there is apparently a lot of talk going around that some of the clubs were absolutely irate with how this whole ordeal with MLS has gone down, and they were questioning whether or not they should not play. But they all decided as a group to play. But let's see what they got a quote here. Let's see what this says.
However, sources involved in the situation stated that over the course of Wednesday, USL club owners discussed a plan to participate in the tournament, which is set to kick off on March 19th, although several owners shared concerns over MLS's intentions. The group ultimately decided it was in the best interest of the sport to stay aligned and partake unanimously as a message of support for a century-old tournament. Why is USL? Why would they drop out of this? I don't even understand why this is a thing. Go ahead. Sorry, Meg.
I think Henry Bushnell broke a bit of this information with Peter McDonough, who's the president of USL. I think I'm remembering his name correctly. He and it seemed like some of the clubs wanted to do it as a matter of principle, maybe like take a stand again. If MLS wasn't participating, they wouldn't either, type of thing. Or I don't know how effective that would be, but that seemed to be the gist of at least what was in Henry's reporting. I think it's good that they've all committed to participate. If only 8 MLS teams are participating, which is what it seems to be, and the reserve teams of those 8 teams, I don't know how you recover from that. I do think we're at a kind of impasse right now where U.S. Soccer, as I said before, my stance is just that U.S. Soccer needs to take a stand. And if they don't, then we've learned all we need to know about U.S. Soccer and whether they're a regulatory body or an arm of MLS. And I think that a lot of us have feared the worst for a long time, and we'll know kind of things. So
yeah, they got the whole NASL lawsuit that's going against them as well. The whole 8 teams buys them another year to kind of negotiate and go from there. But the whole argument by NASL was that MLS and US Soccer were, holding hands, playing together.
Does Batson know how bad, Meg, this is going to make him look, or he and Cindy, if in fact they get trampled over here?
I have to imagine that he does, and I don't know this again, but from other reporting that I've seen, it seems like people at US Soccer were blindsided, including like the people in the committee. Or I think this whole situation really just does kind of put US Soccer in the situation where it makes it clear to everyone in public who's in charge here. And Batson has to know that. Of course he has to know that. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to see who's in charge. And if they don't do something and they don't make sure that MLS participates, then we know. And he looks kind of foolish. I think he does know that personally.
I hope so. I'm sure he does. Yeah. He's no dummy. Yeah. Go ahead, Brett. You're going to play this?
This I don't always agree with Teicher, but we do have a clip of him at a Portland-Seattle U.S. Open Cup match. I don't know how many years ago, to tell you the truth. But he has even back then he had an idea of how U.S. Open Cup should be run. It's a little bit different than what MLS wants, But yeah, let's listen to them real quick.
We've been calling. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was going to say, just so Meg knows, tight shirt is Twelman. We've been
I figured when you said that, yeah.
Yeah, tight shirt Twelman. So that's something we made up here, like what, 12 years ago, Brent?
Oh,
when
yeah.
we were first on Big Soccer. And it's
Nickname
stuck.
is still it's stuck. I mean, it's still out there.
And he knows. That's a great thing is he knows about his nickname. So this is great. Go ahead, Brett. Sorry.
About when you say grow the game. Portland, Seattle don't need to be playing each other. Real Salt Lake, LAFC, they don't need to play each other. The Revs don't need to play the New York Red Bulls. You need to have those teams playing on the road. Quite honestly, it's a round too late. I think the MLS teams need to come in a round sooner. I also believe every MLS team needs to be on the road because you're growing the game. This Portland Timbers team, we're here at Providence Park. They can travel. They should play at North Carolina FC. North Carolina FC should not be playing at St. John's against New York City. No, you've got a responsibility as a federation to grow the game, John. And this is the way I'm talking about, because you don't have promotion relegation. You have this, and you give those fans in those markets that don't have MLS teams an opportunity to see quality competition, but also to have the gates to raise money. You're growing the game in that nature. That's what I'm talking about. I don't think it's a monumental change, Don. I really believe that. But I don't think we need to see Portland versus Seattle where they played at Star.
That's good enough right there.
Yeah, I mean, this is old though, too.
Yeah, I know. But I mean that he's even advocating that the MLS teams need to be included into the system earlier.
Right.
Than where they currently are.
Yeah, I mean, he's completely right. It's very, yeah.
So I don't know. It's again, yeah, him playing Portland playing Seattle's not going to accomplish anything for the cup. But you know, and I don't think necessarily Portland needs to go to North Carolina FC. That'd be one hell of a commute. But I'm sure there's somebody closer that they could play. That's still traveling.
Meg, sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I think the cup obviously needed a lot of innovations, we would say, and you know, it needed attention in terms of making it work, in terms of getting more people watching it, in terms of people, MLS clubs having more of an impact at the lower league clubs, having them on the road, having it make sense for the MLS clubs to want to do that, having the incentives in place beyond their goodwill, since that apparently wasn't efficient for all of the clubs, because some of the MLS clubs, you know, the Seattle Sounders, Kansas City, or even the Philadelphia Union, I mean, the Open Cup has been a venue for teams like the Philadelphia Union to succeed or find a rhythm when they weren't doing it otherwise, and that impacted their success in regular league play. So there are teams that have benefited from and taken seriously the Open Cup without needing extra incentives. But if as a league they needed a little bit of creativity to make it make sense for them, yeah, I think the Cup needs the federation to show it some love. It needs creativity. It needs shifting. But instead what we're getting MLS threatening to pull out of the whole thing, and the whole thing is in jeopardy. I think if MLS does pull out, if we're in a situation where it is just 8 MLS teams and it's the reserve team, I do worry about the future of the Cup. You know, it's had years and stretches of years before where I think that like NASL didn't participate, and it was like very amateur for decades and decades. And it lived on in some form, but yeah, it needs to step in, and it's very clearly on them to step in or not, and we'll see if they do.
I agree. All right, Brett, is that going to be the end of the show? I think we're getting near, right? Right.
You always just cut me off. I've got like 10 more tabs here.
Oh, come on. You can't.
I've got the Garber topics, the Garber comments. I've got the referee argument.
I'm struggling a little bit. My eyes drooping.
You know what?
Mine are.
I'm more than happy to keep these topics for Monday's show, because I don't think they're going to be expired at that point.
Yeah,
I'll come back on Monday and we'll continue.
We gotta let Meg get some sleep here. All right, Meg, what are you up to? Tell us. I know you're on Substack, and that's the Swan Dive, right?
Yeah,
And then
swandive.substack.com, and then doing some freelance writing for a few people. The Guardian and a few other places, but you can find all of my links and stuff on my Twitter. I'm at Meg_Swanick, and that's the one-stop shop where you can find me.
And is The Guardian, is that owned by a British company or is that an American company now?
It is. It's a British company, but they have like The Guardian Australia and The Guardian US, and I actually work with people both sides of the sea. So depending on the assignment or the topic, it's the London office or the New York office. But they have branches. It's a British company, but branches in multiple places.
Right, and that's good to know. There are other options other than some of the domestic publications that, you know, in my day, at least, if you were edgy, they were like, you kind of pissed off U.S. soccer, so we're probably going to stay away from you for. So you go write articles for other people. You know what I mean? So there are other options. That's the good news. Not to say you're in that situation, but it certainly happened. Certainly happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to thank you for coming on. Not to put you on the hot seat right at the end of the show, but I'm just saying that was my experience, and that was 20 years ago. I mean,
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, 20 years ago. You know, nothing's really changed. You've got to be careful what you say, and I don't want to end on that note, but I do want to thank you for necessarily enduring another. What is it, 2 hours plus with us on this show?
No, it's been an absolute delight, but yeah.
You're breaking.
We could have easily made it 3.5, guys.
We could have probably, yes.
Because they're bailing early.
I want to thank you for coming on the show. We hope to have you back, not 2 years from now, but maybe like, you know, a reasonable time.
I blame that on myself, by the way.
That's all
right. I reached out to her a year ago and said, hey, you want to be on the show? And she's like, yeah, my schedule's a little busy. Reach out to me in like a month. I'm like, okay. 1 year later, I'm like, hey, you want to be on the show?
He disappeared, Brett. It is Brett's fault.
Yep.
So it is all Brett's fault. So everybody make sure you like, subscribe, share it with your grandma. Also, make sure you go to the Swan Dive on Substack and follow Meg wherever she goes. She's genuine. She's a real reporter. She doesn't necessarily have to, well, anyhow, I won't get into that. She's great. Just follow what she does. And we will be back on Monday. Everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you soon. No incest talk at the end of the show, by the way. So good night.
But she's a trap. She's an unsung novel. Turn a lap and get your whole world dazzled on the line, or a phone call with or without wine.
That hurt.
Then what is this thing?
Gio should never play for U.S. men's national team again because of the action of his parents.
What an idiot! Oh!
What type of Muppet does this?
Muppets. Absolute Muppets.